Chapter 1149. No, young master, this servant wants to go back with you, Bao Yan said resolutely. Ding Yun ignored her. This servant girl had been picked up by his mother and brought back to the mountain villa when she was young. She had always stayed in his courtyard to serve him, and her temperament had always been very stubborn. Once she decided on something, it was rare for her to change her mind, so Ding Yun was disinclined to say anything more. Arbor stared curiously at the bowl of noodles in front of her, and her small hand impatiently reached into the bowl. Wait! Cold Master Ding jumped in fright and hastily grabbed her small hand. However, he felt that it was like a small ice cube in his hand, cool and without a trace of warmth. He hurriedly took a pair of chopsticks and placed it in her hand. How can you use your hands? It's so hot. Come, use the chopsticks. Arbor stared at the two bamboo chopsticks in her hand with an expression that she had never seen before. She shook them, then grabbed a pair of chopsticks with each hand and reached into the bowl with difficulty to stir the noodles. After a long time, she didn't even manage to scoop up a single strand of noodles. If she found out later that she had once been so foolish, she probably wouldn't just hang up and beat up the giant ape for a day and be done with it. That was why it was said that one couldn't be too single-minded and absolute when doing anything. As a cultivation maniac, her mind was blank except for cultivation. She couldn't even take care of herself. This really wasn't good. Bao Yan couldn't help but laugh out loud. Heavens, this fool doesn't even know how to use chopsticks. Bao Yan. Ding Yun's expression turned cold. Bao Yan closed her mouth with a disgruntled expression, glaring at Arbor with a bit of jealousy and resentment. There had never been anyone or anything that could attract young master's full attention like this. Young master had always been someone who played around and didn't care about anyone or anything, but now, he actually doted on a fool so much. Come. Great Cult Master Ding simply put down his bowl and chopsticks. He picked up a clean pair of chopsticks, picked up a piece of noodles, and brought it to her lips. Eat. Darling Qiao glanced at Cult Master Ding and moved her small head closer to open her mouth. With a crack, she bit off half of the chopsticks. Cold Master Ding, Bao Yan burst out laughing. After a long struggle, he finally poured the entire bowl of noodles into her stomach. Arbor raised his hand to rub his belly, got up, and walked towards the door. Bao Yan. She had eaten the noodles and drank the soup. Was she going to leave after eating her fill? This little fool is really a little hateful. Blockhead. Cold Master Ding hurriedly threw down his bowl of noodles, got up, and ran towards her. Arbor was walking out the door when he bumped into the second shopkeeper, who had just come back from collecting the bill. The second shopkeeper inadvertently raised his head and was immediately stunned. He cried out involuntarily, "Crown Princess." The Crown Prince and Arbor had come to this restaurant before, and it was this second manager who had personally received them. Naturally, he recognized his mistress at a glance. At this moment, the second manager stared at Arbor with wide eyes and exclaimed in surprise, "Crown Princess." It really was the Crown Princess. Head shopkeeper, come quickly. Head shopkeeper, look at who I saw. It's the Crown Princess. During this period of time, the Crown Princess had disappeared from the Mystic Beast Forest. The Crown Prince had mustered a large force and brought his hidden guards to search for the Crown Princess' whereabouts, so all of the Crown Prince's subordinates knew about this. No wonder the second manager was so happy. If this news was immediately reported, His Highness the Crown Prince would probably go crazy with joy. What? The Crown Princess. The head shopkeeper had been busy upstairs and hadn't come down. Now that he heard the second manager's ghostly cry, he hastily ran downstairs. Chapter 1150. The head shopkeeper ran downstairs to look at Arbor and was overjoyed at the sight. Crown Princess, it's really the Crown Princess. Thank the heavens, this is great. Second brother, quick, quick. Hurry up and report to His Highness. All right, we've finally found him. The head shopkeeper went forward, but before he could finish speaking, Ding Yun coldly blocked Arbor's path. Who are you? The head shopkeeper was stunned. I am the head shopkeeper of Morning Cloud Restaurant. Hello, sir, did you save our Crown Princess? Thank you so much, thank you so much. Crown Princess. Ding Yun snorted. What the hell is this Crown Princess? We don't know you at all, please move aside. The second shopkeeper and 2 or 3 waiters rushed up, all talking at once. Sir, how can you say that? This is our Crown Princess. Crown Princess, I am Ah Fu. You and His Highness came here a few days ago, and I even brought you tea and water, remember? Yes. Crown Princess, stop fooling around. His Highness has been sending people to look for you day and night. If you're in a bad mood and want to go missing occasionally, that's fine. You can tell His Highness first, and then you can go missing. The head shopkeeper craned his neck and looked impatiently at Arbor, then gave the second shopkeeper a look. The second shopkeeper immediately understood and hurried out, presumably to find Dragon Saliva Guard Captain Yushio to pass on the message. What kind of words were these? Ding Yun couldn't bring himself to smile. He saw this and felt slightly anxious. Damn it, so this Morning Cloud Restaurant was the Crown Prince's property. This was bad. Once the news reached the Crown Prince's ears, the little blockhead would be captured and brought back at any moment. That despicable Mo Lien, why wasn't he dead yet? Ding Yun's handsome face was cold as he separated the head shopkeeper with one hand and grabbed Arbor's small hand with the other. Let's go. Wait, you can't leave. The head shopkeeper blocked the two and looked at Ding Yun with an ugly expression. You can leave, but the Crown Princess has to stay. Littlewood, do you know them? Ding Yun's expression remained unchanged as he turned to ask Arbor. He knew that Arbor would not respond to anyone, including him. Sure enough, a certain little person's face was expressionless, and there was no reaction even after a while. Crown Princess. The head shopkeeper was anxious. He scratched his head and ears and said, I'm Old Sue. Please take a closer look. Haven't we met before? Hey! What's going on? There's no need to look anymore. All of you, get out of the way. Don't come here to claim kinship. Ding Yun sneered. He grabbed Xiao Qiao's little hand and turned to walk out of the door. Wait, stop right there. With a cold face, the manager extended his hand to block Ding Yun's path again. Ding Yun flicked his sleeves angrily, and the manager took 3 steps back with a dong 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 sound. His face was gloomy and uncertain. So powerful. This young man's cultivation was actually so profound that he could push back a level 10 Great Mystic Cultivator manager by 3 steps with a light flick of his sleeve. Inside Morning Cloud Restaurant, everyone was dead silent. The manager's expression was also very unsightly. He cupped his hands at Ding Yun and said, Today, this Sue's skills are inferior and I concede defeat. Sir, please leave your esteemed name. Beijing Manor. Ding Yun snorted. Ding Yun. So it's Beijing Manor's young Master Ding. The manager's eyes flashed, and he cupped his fists and bowed. No matter what, young Master Ding, please understand one thing. Chapter 1151. The head manager pointed at Arbor. This is the Eastern Palace's Crown Princess. Keeping her here will be of great benefit to you and your family. Ding Yun sneered. You want to keep me here with just the likes of you? Excuse me. With a wave of the head shopkeeper's hand, all of the waiters in Morning Cloud Restaurant rushed up with sharp gazes and surrounded Ding Yun, Xiao Mu, and Bao Yan. Bao Yan pointed at Xiao Mu in astonishment and asked, "Young master, is this really the Crown Prince Consort?" "No, she doesn't know them at all," Ding Yun said indifferently. "This is a shady restaurant. Bao Yan, bring little blockhead back to the manor first. I'll deal with this." "Ah, how can this be? What if Madam finds out about this? Who would step foot into my courtyard normally? Hurry and take her away." Ding Yun glared at Bao Yan. "Are you not going to listen to me anymore?" "Yes, young master." Bao Yan lowered her eyes, aggrieved. "Simply a lunatic's ravings," the head manager said furiously. "All of you, attack. You must keep him here. Be careful not to hurt the Crown Princess." Just as the head manager finished speaking, he suddenly saw a plain-colored figure move. "Pa!" He kicked a small square table, directly flattening it. Darling Qiao turned her small face and rolled up her sleeves. Her figure moved and scratched the face of the waiter closest to her. "Head manager, Daughter Excellency Crown Princess, what are you doing? Can't you distinguish between friend and foe first?" Ding Yun grabbed her small hand and shoved her toward Bao Yan. "Let's go." Bao Yan pulled Arbor and suddenly struck out with two palms, dashing out of the door. Just as the head manager and the others were about to give chase, they saw Ding Yun suddenly float in the air and spread open his arms to release two powerful waves of mystic qi. Everyone screamed, "Aw," and fell out like rubber balls. The tables and chairs in front of him were all smashed into wooden splinters and scattered to the ground. Ding Yun did not linger in the battle after his attack succeeded. He quickly flipped out of the window and chased after the two figures in front of him. "Quick! Quick, stop them!" The shopkeeper spat out a mouthful of blood as he crawled up from the ground and yelled. "Quick, quick, quick! Stop them!" Ding Yun jumped out of the window and saw the group of people from Morning Cloud Restaurant chasing after him, unwilling to give up. He turned his head and waved his hand. Several wooden windows and doors nearby were all shattered, startling the pedestrians who were walking on the street. They screamed and covered their heads as they dodged. Ding Yun smiled and flew to Arbor's side in a few steps. He took a breath and flew forward with Arbor. The fleeing people raised their heads one after another and stared blankly at the two goddess-like beauties. The head shopkeeper and the others chased after them in a sorry state, but Arbor was nowhere to be seen. They were so angry that they stomped their feet and sighed. "Uncle Su, what should we do now?" Fu asked. "Is the second manager back yet?" "Go and report again. Also, hurry and inform the Dragon Saliva Guards to close the city gates and lock down the entire city." "Search." The people from Morning Cloud Restaurant rushed out one after another. Some reported, and some were busy searching. All of them were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. The head shopkeeper looked like he had nothing left to live for. Originally, finding the Crown Princess was an especially good thing, but now that if His Highness the Crown Prince were to find out that the person had escaped from their restaurant, he would definitely torture all of them to death. Chapter 1152. At this moment, a strange scene appeared on the streets of the capital. From the nobles and noble ladies to the commoners, peddlers and servants, they all stared blankly at the two beauties, one in front and one behind, as if they were taking a leisurely stroll in the courtyard. Arbor didn't notice their gazes at all. Even if she did, there wouldn't be any ripples in her heart. Cultivate, cultivate, cultivate. Previously, because her vision had recovered, Arbor's attention had been diverted by a lot of fresh food. Now that she had finished eating and exited Morning Cloud Restaurant, the speed cultivation talisman once again shouted in her heart. Now, she should find an especially quiet environment to continue cultivating. Arbor raised her head and looked around, frowning a few times. The mystic energy here was very thin, and she somewhat disliked it. Lil the blockhead, let's return to the manor, okay? Ding Yun followed behind her and asked cautiously. Arbor naturally wouldn't give him any response. Now that she had recovered her vision, everything else had not recovered. She couldn't hear, and she couldn't speak, so how was she supposed to answer? Ding Yun smiled and said, if you don't object, I'll take it that you agree. In the future, you'll go wherever I go, and we'll never be separated, okay? Arbor replied with the back of her head. Bao Yan, who was at the side, glanced at Arbor with a sour taste in her heart, then said to Ding Yun, young master, I think we should leave the city as soon as possible. That shopkeeper from earlier probably went to report, and any later, I'm afraid we won't be able to leave the city gates. Ding Yun grunted in agreement. Just as he finished speaking, they heard a hoarse voice shout from the other end of the street, surround this entire street, no one is allowed to leave. Sir, what's going on? This old man has set up a small stall here, and I've been honest and dutiful. I haven't done a single bad thing. That's right, sir, we're all good citizens. Seeing the soldiers coming over in an aggressive manner, a few of the peddlers were shocked and quickly greeted the leading officer with an obsequious smile. The imperial court is searching for the criminal who kidnapped the crown princess. It's just a routine matter, and it's none of your business. Move aside, go home if you need to. Everyone obediently retreated to the side of the street. Search carefully. Don't let anyone go. The leader of the officers shouted angrily. Ding Yun cast a glance at the other end of the long street, only to see several hundred soldiers under the lead of a dark-faced man, interrogating the pedestrians one by one. Ding Yun frowned and grabbed Arbor's little hand. Little blockhead, let's go. Bao Yan clenched her fists, knowing that the situation was not good. Could it be that his young master was so daring as to kidnap someone else's crown princess? As the three of them moved quickly, the dark-faced man glanced at their departing figures and hurriedly shouted, "Stop right there." Ding Yun pulled Arbor and ran faster and faster. The dark-faced man quickly caught up and angrily shouted, "Stop." Ding Yun turned his head and glared at him. "Who are you calling to stop?" "I'm calling you." The black-faced man was none other than the deputy commander of the Imperial Army, He Tian. At the same time, Hui Feng leaped in from the study's window. Holding the information in his hand, he excitedly reported, "Your Highness, our men have found the crown princess." "Where?" Mo Lien abruptly stood up. Mo Lien wasn't the only one inside the small study. Duan Yu and Situ Yi, who were sitting across from each other, were also surprised. "Where is little junior sister?" "She's at Morning Cloud Restaurant on Hualing Street." As soon as he finished speaking, His Highness the Crown Prince's figure swiftly brushed past him and flew out. Chapter 1153. When He Tian received the news, he happened to be nearby with a group of soldiers, so he was naturally one step ahead of Dragon Saliva Guard Captain Yushio. After Morning Cloud Restaurant sent out the news, there was no need for the Crown Prince to give the order. Once they received news that the Crown Princess was in the capital, be it the Hidden Night Pavilion, Dragon Saliva Guard, or Imperial Guard, they immediately split up and began to search the city. If the Crown Prince Consort was still able to escape from under their noses like this, then who knew what His Highness the Crown Prince would do to these pitiful people? He Tian happened to be nearby with a group of soldiers, so he immediately rushed over to Morning Cloud Restaurant after receiving the secret report. They began their search from the restaurant, and indeed, they soon saw Ding Yun pulling the Crown Princess and planning to leave quietly. He immediately stopped them. "What right do you have to tell me to stop?" Ding Yun sneered. He Tian was furious. Good lad, it's you, isn't it? The Ding Yun who injured innkeeper Su. I advise you not to act recklessly. Quickly release our crown prince consort and allow yourself to be captured. As he spoke, a group of soldiers had already rushed over and surrounded Ding Yun and Arbor. The crowd dispersed in all directions, afraid that they would accidentally injure themselves in a fight. Just with your motley crew. You want to keep me, Ding Yun, here? He sneered. What arrogance! All of you, get out of the way. I'll deal with this little brat. He Tian pulled out the steel sword at his waist and waved it, sending a gust of wind toward Ding Yun. Ding Yun guffawed, and his eyes narrowed as he coldly uttered, just in time. He lightly pushed Xiao Mu aside before grabbing a soldier beside him to swiftly block the attack. That soldier felt the wind from the sword was biting cold. If He Tian hadn't withdrawn his aura, half of his head would have been cut off. Even so, the soldier broke out in a cold sweat. He raised his hand to touch his head and found that a large chunk of his hair had been shaved off, leaving his forehead completely bald. Ding Yun laughed heartily as he snatched the spear from the soldier's hand and tossed him aside. The soldier was thrown onto the table at the side and rolled onto the ground. He cried out in pain and was helped up by his companions. He Tian saw that he was so crafty and strange, toying with his soldiers the moment he made a move, and his expression could not help but become furious. In the blink of an eye, Yi Tian's second and third strikes carried the unique strength of a level 11 body cultivator and arrived in front of Ding Yun. Ding Yun raised his spear to block the attack, his eyes filled with ridicule as he praised, "Good saber technique." He Tian's saber focused on speed. Seeing Ding Yun easily block two of his moves while talking, he couldn't help but secretly admired this young man's cultivation. He was a rough man. If he could win, then he could win. If he couldn't, then he couldn't. There was nothing to be unconvinced about. Right now, his skills were inferior, but he could not retreat even half a step. The most important thing right now was to rescue the crown princess. No matter how bad it was, he had to keep them here and wait for the crown prince to arrive. He didn't know what was wrong with the crown princess. Her gaze was cold as she looked in their direction, as if she didn't even recognize him. She didn't know if this brat had done something to her to make her look like an idiot. In the blink of an eye, He Tian had already exchanged over 100 moves with Ding Yun and was forced to retreat. He Tian couldn't help but feel frustrated. He didn't expect this Ding brat to have such a profound cultivation despite his young age. If this continued, he was afraid that he would lose to him due to lack of strength. Chapter 1154. Ding Yun's lips curled into a sneer as he mercilessly grabbed at his shoulder. This claw seemed to have the intention of breaking He Tian's shoulder blade. He didn't feel like teasing these small fries anymore. In reality, many thoughts had also flashed through Ding Yun's mind. At this moment, he was a bit regretful. He regretted wandering around the Mo Kingdom capital. If he had brought this darling back to the headquarters earlier, it wouldn't have attracted so much trouble. He had been too confident. Although these small fries weren't his match, he was afraid that if they fought for a long time, they would attract even more enemies. At that time, it would be hard to guarantee victory. His Lil the blockhead didn't recognize anyone right now. That was perfect. In his heart, he really didn't want her to recover her memory. Once she returned to normal, he wouldn't be treated well by her. Perhaps she would attack him mercilessly like that night by the river. When he thought of this, his heart felt like it was being wrenched by something, making him extremely uncomfortable. A long howl came from the other end of the street. He Tian suddenly jumped up and followed up with a howl. Ding Yun's heart trembled, knowing that the dark-faced man's companions had rushed over. In a hurry, a trace of mystic energy floated up from his hands, suppressing the spears in the soldiers' hands. In the blink of an eye, he had them all turn around and point their spears at Heartwarming. Those soldiers cried out, "Io!" their hands stabbing their spears at Heartwarming uncontrollably. Heartwarming was greatly alarmed. His steel saber chopped off the spearheads with a few swishes, and he shouted, "Steady yourselves. Retreat, retreat." Dingyun took advantage of the chaos to grab Arbor's small hand, pulling her along as he ran towards the city gates. With a flick of his sleeve, several passers-by were all pushed to the ground by the mystic energy he released. The rolling passers-by sprawled on the ground, crying out in alarm. Heartwarming led everyone in pursuit and nearly stepped on those passers-by, so he hastily avoided them. Arbor still didn't know what happened, so she expressionlessly turned to glance at Heartwarming and the others. "Crown Princess." Heartwarming angrily cursed, "Motherfucker," and chased over with flying steps while holding his steel saber. He rebuked, "Stinking brat, you better hurry and stop. What kind of sorcery did you use on our crown princess? She can't even recognize me." Dingyun ignored him and pulled Arbor along as he ran. However, he had only taken a few steps when he heard the sound of clothes fluttering behind him. 3 figures just happened to land around them, blocking Dingyun's path in a triangular formation. Heartwarming shouted, "Your Highness," and rushed over with his blade. Dingyun focused his gaze and saw that it was Prince Mo, Duanyu, and Situyi. When Dingyun saw Crown Prince Mo, he was visibly startled. Why did he look so safe and sound? Wasn't he poisoned by devil grass, an extremely potent neurotoxin? In a short period of time, the nerves would be paralyzed, which would then affect the limbs and body. He would gradually become a paralyzed person. But now, this man was actually unharmed. Dingyun's pupils constricted slightly as a trace of discomfort slid through his heart. Why was the devil grass ineffective on this man? Prince Mo narrowed his phoenix eyes and coldly said, "Return the baby to me and you can scram." Dingyun reflexively grasped Arbor's small hand and pretended to be a complete stranger. He glared at them and shouted, "Who are you people? Why are you obstructing our path time and time again? Withdraw." A trace of fury flashed through Prince Mo's eyes. He glanced at the unresponsive Arbor with unconcealable jealousy and hatred in his heart. Chapter 1155. With a swish, her sword pierced towards Dingyun's heart at an extremely fast speed. This stab was ruthless and accurate, and it came so quickly. However, Dingyun gathered his energy and flipped in midair, grabbing Arbor as he retreated 3 steps. Duanyu exclaimed with a smile before nodding and praising, "Your martial arts aren't bad. Unfortunately, you're about to become a dead man." Dingyun snorted. "You're talking about yourself, right? You still dare to hold on to me and not let go?" Mo Lien was enraged, and Raven Moon abruptly appeared in her palm. A vicious aura streaked across the air, aiming for Dingyun's eyes. "Your Highness, please wait." Situyi quickly flew in front of him and blocked his sword. He acted like a peacemaker as he said, "It won't be too late to make a move after we've made things clear. Little junior sister. Why are you so naughty? Why didn't you inform us when you returned to the royal capital? Do you know that in order to find you, His Highness the Crown Prince has spent a lot of effort?" Shaosher. Situyi paused in the middle of his words because he realized that his junior sister's eyes had not even glanced in his direction. This little fellow was looking around for who knew what. She really was blind to not look in their direction when the 3 peerlessly handsome men were standing in front of her. She could still absent-mindedly look around like this. "Look my ass. Jojo, Jojo." Duanyu also noticed that Arbor's expression was a bit off, so he couldn't resist calling out to her. Arbor's small face was stoic as she searched her surroundings, causing them to also turn their heads to see what she was looking at. When Arbor's gaze landed on the 3 of them, an extremely icy and detached face happened to be facing them. Her gaze didn't move at all, and her expression didn't change at all. It was as if she was looking at three strangers. Mo Lian's heart contracted. Her heart was about to shatter when she saw this terrifying and icy gaze. Duan Yu's eyes also widened in shock. Jojo, what's wrong? Why don't you recognize us? We didn't recognize each other in the first place. Why pretend like you know each other? Ding Yun said with a cold laugh. There's nothing to say. It was him. After capturing our Chow Chow, I don't know what they fed her, but now she looks like an idiot. Even now, he still dares to refuse to let go. Let me kill him first. Duan Yu's beautiful peach blossom eyes were tainted with a layer of fury, and he tilted his body to throw a yearning nail at Ding Yun's throat. Brother Duan Yu, calm down. Although Situ Yi was also anxious, he was the calmest among them and wouldn't let the matter before him get to his head. Hence, he hastily pressed down on Duan Yu and turned to say to Ding Yun, this humble one is Heavenly Dao Sec Situ Yi. Brother must be Beijing Manor's young master, Ding Yun. That's right. Ding Yun stared at him. Who are you? Why are you blocking our path again and again? Bao Yan nervously clenched her fists as she stood on the side. When Prince Mo and the others appeared, her heart started pounding madly like a drum. She was on tenterhooks for her young master's safety. She could tell that the young master's strength was slightly inferior to His Highness the Crown Prince's. If the three people before her joined forces, the young master absolutely wouldn't be able to escape alive. It was all this fool's fault. It was all her fault for causing this disaster. Bao Yan resentfully looked at Arbor, who was standing next to the young master. Arbor was expressionless and even somewhat absent-minded. Chapter 1156. Her gaze kept wandering around, searching for a place with enough mystic energy for her to cultivate. He noticed that her gaze never rested on him for even a moment from beginning to end. Prince Mo was truly anxious, infuriated, and in unbearable heartache. What was going on? What exactly happened inside the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm? Why did his darling act like she didn't know him at all? Mo Lian only felt a heart-wrenching fury gushing out. That fury instantly scuttled up from the depths of her heart, and she urgently needed to find an outlet to vent. Stop pretending. Don't you know the reason why we stopped you? Tell us, what exactly do you want for Jojo to be released? Mo Lian demanded while glaring at Ding Yun. Jojo. Ding Yun pretended to look down at the little lady whose gaze was wandering everywhere. You're talking about her. Nonsense. Duan Yu harumphed. You punk, quickly return Jojo if you know what's good for you. Otherwise, don't blame us for attacking you. She's not the Jojo you're talking about. Ding Yun looked like he was lying through his teeth, but his expression was extremely serious. Look, she doesn't know you guys at all. She says she's called Lilith Blockhead, and she's my. Why are you still arguing with him? Why don't you kill him and snatch Jojo back? Duan Yu jumped up and shouted, why aren't you attacking? Fight! Dragon Saliva Guard Captain Yusho, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, led a group of Dragon Saliva Guard disciples over. Before he could speak, the four people were about to fight. Situ-Yi glanced at them in astonishment and asked hesitantly, are we attacking together? Duh. This isn't too good, right? Situ-Yi hesitated. What's not good about it? Now isn't the time to talk about righteousness in the pugilistic world. Attack together and kill this guy. Then all the problems will be solved. Duan Yu made the final decision. For the first time, Prince Mo felt that Duan Yu was quite quick-witted. He was right. Everything would be settled after killing him. Duan Yu and Prince Mo flew forward one after another, and Raven Moon and Raven Bone Fan simultaneously swung at Ding Yun. What a lousy idea. Situi sighed inwardly. In fact, he wanted to ask young Master Ding what was going on with his junior sister. Perhaps this young Master Ding had accidentally picked up his junior sister and brought her with him all the way. What if this young Master Ding was junior sister's benefactor? It was a little unreasonable for him to suddenly attack young Master Ding. The strangest thing was that little junior sister didn't even have the slightest reaction when she saw them. In the past, whenever she saw him, even if her face was stoic, she would still cutely call him senior brother Situ. Prince Mo and Duan Yu attacked Ding Yun without another word. After a moment of hesitation, Situi also pounced forward, unsheathing the long sword at his waist. 3 bursts of vigorous dark force simultaneously crashed into young Master Ding's chest, back, and long legs. Ding Yun's heart couldn't help but tremble. He had previously used the identity of thief sage Ding Tingding to fight with Prince Mo, and he knew that he was no match for him. If he hadn't schemed against him at that time, he probably wouldn't have been able to escape. Now that Duan Yu and Situi were added to the mix, it became increasingly difficult. He felt like every strike from the trio wanted his life. After blocking Duan Yu's palm strike with great difficulty, Mo Lien and Situi's swords stabbed toward his chest as fast as lightning. Amidst the chaos, Ding Yun's gaze focused, and he turned to smile at Duan Yu. Chapter 1157. Laugh my ass. Duan Yu was about to scold him when the other party opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of poisonous mist. After Duan Yu dodged to the side, he almost bumped into the sword that Situi handed over. This made Situi so angry that he jumped in fright and quickly shouted, "Brother Duan Yu, what the hell are you doing? There's something wrong with this punk." Duan Yu quickly shouted, "He's a superhuman." Mo Lien looked at Ding Yun pensively. She didn't say anything and just brandished her long sword, forcing Ding Yun to retreat in a fluster. Yu Xiu suddenly called out, "Crown Prince Consort." Arbor's gaze didn't land on those people. In reality, she had already sensed the location with the densest mystic energy in the entire royal capital. Compared to the mystic energy inside the Mystic Beast Forest Mystic Realm, the mystic energy here was clearly much thinner. But it was better than nothing, right? Arbor locked onto her target and flew up to the roof in a flash, directly leaving the group of men staring at each other on the street behind. She ran off first by herself. Little junior sister. Situi couldn't resist shouting when he returned to his senses. Fuck. They were fighting enthusiastically over there, but little junior sister didn't care at all and abandoned them to run off first. How could Arbor hear that? After a few leaps, the little one disappeared from everyone's sight. Duan Yu was a bit dumbfounded, but his movements weren't slow as he reflexively blocked Ding Yun's path. During this one breath's time, Mo Lien abandoned everyone and quickly chased after Arbor's fleeing figure. Darling Qiao's disappearance only took a few seconds, so Mo Lien was also fast enough to catch up. Not long after, she saw that nimble little fellow running towards the mountain behind Honghai Temple on all fours. Behind Fu Mountain was Shuzi Lake. Why was the little fellow running there? Our dear Arbor's mind was restless at this moment. Cultivate, cultivate, cultivate. It felt pretty good as expected. The closer she got to Fu Mountain, the denser the mystic energy felt. Compared to the thin mystic energy in the entire capital, the mystic energy in the mountain behind Fu Mountain was much denser. When Arbor reached the mountain behind Fu Mountain, a jade-green lake appeared before her eyes. The jade-green water was as serene as a mirror. The lake rippled as sunlight seeped into it. Xiaomu jumped onto a large rock by the lakeside and casually combed her long hair that had been messed up by the wind with a slight movement of her fingers. The water ripples lightly, the water, ripples a fish's tail after tail, to the side to the water to the back of the lake. The lake water reflected a small face that was as white as jade. Her unperturbed gaze landed on the lake's surface as she concentrated on the water. Her brows furrowed with a hint of coldness, as if she could freeze the lake's jade-green ripples. Arbor pursed her beady lips and slowly raised her fair and tender breasts. She gently stroked the ripples on the lake's surface before suddenly leaping into the water with a splash. She emerged from the water with a slender fish and spat out a mouthful of bubbles. A defensive barrier naturally covered her body, and she closed her eyes to rapidly absorb the dense mystic energy around the lake. The little fellow was only following her instincts and intuition when doing these actions, so her face was as expressionless as a wooden sculpture. As if she was going to carry out a sacred mission, her small face was stoic, and her entire body emitted a steady and calm aura. Chapter 1158. Arbor merely followed her instincts and skillfully entered a cultivation state. Mo Lian's chilly aura enveloped this lake. When he saw the little fellow's current state, he didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. How come he never knew that the first thing this mischievous little thing did after returning to the Mo Kingdom capital was to run to Zhuzi Lake behind Fu Mountain to cultivate? Cultivate, cultivate, cultivate. Xiaomu did not know that Crown Prince Mo was staring fixedly at her beside her, gazing at her in a daze. She immersed herself in cultivation for 2 days and 3 nights without any activity. Mo Lian kept watch over her the entire time, watching over this vexing little thing. On the other side, after Ding Yun lost Arbor, he was chased out of the city gate by Duanyu, Yu Xiu, and the others. Situ Yi originally wanted to stop them after following them out of the city gate, but Yu Xiu and the others simply didn't give Ding Yun a chance to speak. After exiting the Mo Kingdom capital, the group chased Cult Master Ding all the way to Gale Forest and completely surrounded him. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Bao Yan quickly exclaimed, "Young master, leave first." "Why should I leave?" Ding Yun sneered. His slender figure suddenly streaked across the sky as he sent a wave of mystic energy at Duanyu and the others. Duanyu met him with narrowed eyes, and the two exchanged over 100 blows. As they fought, the sound of wind mixed with the clanging of swords rang out incessantly. "Brother Duanyu! Young Master Ding! Can the two of you slow down and listen to what I have to say first?" Situ Yi twitched his mouth and hastily called out. In the open space in front of the forest, dense mystic energy transformed into balls of white light that exploded. Duanyu and Ding Yun abruptly separated from each other upon contact. The Dragon Saliva Guard soldiers at the front of the formation couldn't dodge in time and were all injured by the mystic energy, tumbling backwards with a plop. Yu Xiu's face darkened, and he was about to charge forward with his sword when Duanyu reached out to stop him. Bao Yan gritted her teeth and steeled her heart. Suddenly, she leaped onto a tree. After closing her eyes, a few drops of sweat slowly seeped out of her small face. When she opened her eyes again, Bao Yan put her little hand to her lips and cried out a few times. Suddenly, furry faces slowly emerged from behind the trees in the forest. Swaying their long tails, a dozen or so vicious wolves bared their sharp teeth at Duanyu's group. Duanyu raised a brow. Interesting. The little maid beside Ding Yun was actually a person with special abilities. Bao Yan used her telekinesis to summon the wolves nearby. With the range of her special ability, she could only summon more than 10 wolves. Even so, it was still quite impressive. It must be known that the pack of wolves that Bao Yan had summoned were not ordinary wolves. Most of them were Xian beasts of the 5th level and above. It was slightly troublesome to deal with them. After exhausting her psychokinesis, Bao Yan barely propped up her limp body and slid down. With her back against the tree, she stared unblinkingly at Duan Yu's group. He let out a soft reprimand. The large wolf in the lead suddenly pounced ferociously in Duan Yu's direction. Duan Yu sneered and instinctively shook the raven bone fan in his hand. He dodged the vicious wolf's pounce with a crouch and turned around to leap onto the wolf's back at lightning speed. With a flash of silver light, Duan Yu gently closed the raven bone fan in his hand. With a forceful fling of his raised wrist, the raven bone fan abruptly transformed into a long sword. The sharp blade reversed and directly stabbed into the large wolf's head. Duan Yu's lips curled into a sneer. Chapter 1159. That dumb wolf only had time to whimper twice before collapsing heavily on the ground, dead. Immediately afterward, two more vicious wolves pounced forward, but their necks were slit by the long sword. The pack of wolves whimpered and didn't dare to act rashly. Bao Yan bit her lips and shouted angrily, "Hurry and go." Duan Yu put away his long sword and silently stood under the tree, his lips curling into a sardonic smile. Suddenly, he flung his sleeve, and a round, sparkling emerald pearl suddenly leaped into the air. Duan Yu took out a small object that resembled an emerald green bamboo tube from his waist. He opened the back cover and instantly sucked the emerald pearl inside. He abruptly twisted the lid and lightly pressed it, causing a green light to explode instantly. A ray of light shot out and landed at the feet of the pack of wolves. With a loud boom, large patches of flames immediately erupted. Duan Yu looked at the flames that kept rippling in front of him. When he saw that the vicious wolves were all engulfed by the flames, he blinked and murmured with a chuckle, "Jade Heavenly Thunder, not bad at all." This new type of firearm's power could surpass the core ravaging thunder, and its range was also much further. Ding Yun flipped twice in the air while dragging Bao Yan along. His sleeves were stained by the green flames, and a series of small holes were burned into them. Cold Master Ding was fine, but Bao Yan was a bit miserable. She was already a bit weak after using her special power, and now that she was burned by the soaring flames, her arms and legs were in pain from the burns. Her body went limp, and she fell to the ground. "Let's go." Ding Yun grabbed Bao Yan and gave her a push before escaping into the forest with her with an unsightly expression. Yu Xiao was about to give chase with his men when Duan Yu stopped him. "Don't chase." Situi sighed in relief and said, "I feel that this matter is quite strange. I wonder how little junior sister is doing." A hint of worry flashed through Duan Yu's eyes. "Let's go back and take a look." Mai Qiao's division, after 2 days and 3 nights, Arbor opened her eyes. Her cultivation had already advanced from phenomenal success to the pinnacle of level 13 mystic cultivation. In addition, not only did her strength increase by a minor realm, that her eyes moved slightly, as if her sense of hearing and taste had also recovered. Arbor raised her eyebrows. She didn't know why, but she felt a little excited. It seemed that something important was about to come back. The little fellow squatted inside the defensive shield and swayed a few times with the flow of water. Suddenly, she saw a moon-white figure swimming quickly towards her. Immediately after, a faint medicinal fragrance wrapped around her. Her lips were gently opened by the tip of someone's tongue, and an endless medicinal fragrance followed. Arbor's eyes were wide open. He didn't understand what was going on. The surrounding scenery was very detailed. Even the schools of fish that were swimming around could be seen clearly, and the colorful spots on their bodies could be seen clearly. But now was not the time to study fish. Under normal circumstances, Arbor should have pushed the person in front of him away and kicked him hard with his little foot. But for some reason, he couldn't bear to do it. His fist had already reached the back of that person's head, but he still stopped. Cough, 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 cough. The little fellow actually couldn't hold her breath and nearly choked on her own saliva. She couldn't resist stretching out her little paws to push him away, but she suddenly realized that his slender fingers were tightly gripping her waist. Her entire body was wrapped in his embrace, and her small hands and feet were suppressed. She was practically unable to move. Chapter 1160. He wrapped his arms around her waist and pressed his soft lips against hers. This kiss was so long that it seemed like it would last until the end of time. He held on to her and never let go, searching her mouth to his heart's content. Arbor opened her eyes wide and glared at him. No matter how much Mo Lien closed his eyes and pressed down on her to kiss her, after a long while, he finally couldn't help but bring her to the surface of the water. Because this little fellow kept glaring at him. Although she didn't make a sound, that strange little expression on her face made him feel stifled. She actually wasn't intoxicated at all. To think that he had already sunk into it, how infuriating. A certain baby who had lost her 7 emotions and 6 desires only knew that this strange big brother kept nibbling on her. There weren't any ripples in her heart. Splash! With a soft sound, Arbor was lifted out of the water with both hands. She kicked her leg and reached out to press down on the rock on her right, flipping over and sitting on it. This time, she saw it clearly. On the sparkling green water surface, there was a man in white with long hair and a few droplets of water on his handsome face. His black, satin-like hair was soaked in the lake water, sticking to his straight back. His phoenix eyes were filled with a faint light as he stared straight at her, as if he wanted to see through her to the depths of her heart. Just like that, he stared at her in a daze. After a long while, he finally let out a long sigh. Unexpectedly, Xiao Mu also followed suit and sighed. She blinked her eyes and coughed lightly. Then, she raised her hand to touch her throat and realized that she could actually speak. "Jojo, are you pretending that you don't know me?" The water rippled gently, and this beauty swayed to the side of the big rock, half lying there and looking at her. Darling Qiao blinked and suddenly said, "Who are you?" Mo Lien tightly pursed his thin lips. Suddenly, he reached out and pulled her into the water again. He was overwhelmed by rage and grief, and he cupped her small face in his hands. Without another word, he bit down on her small mouth and nibbled on it rudely. "Who am I? Who do you think I am? Tell me." Boom! Arbor tried to restrain himself again and again, but in the end, he couldn't take it anymore. He stretched out a small fist and punched the back of Mo Lien's head. "What are you doing?" Xiao Mu shouted as she forcefully pushed away his drenched body and wiped her small mouth in passing. Mo Lien. Why did he feel that the little thing in front of him was inexplicably cute? "I'm your husband." His heart skipped a beat, and he reached out to hug her. However, she raised her small hand and slapped his hand away rudely. It was already the 12th day since the disaster-courting talisman had taken effect. Arbor's 5 senses and consciousness were slowly recovering. However, the only goal in his heart would never change. Cultivate, cultivate, cultivate. Where are we going? Seeing that the little fellow was about to jump into the water again, Mo Lien quickly pulled her into his embrace and forcefully held her hands down. A trace of anger flashed across his almond-shaped eyes. "Don't move." With this soft and moist body in his arms, how much willpower did he have to use to restrain himself? This little fellow actually dared to move around to provoke him. Wasn't she worried that he would do her on the spot? Arbor slightly tilted her little head and met his pair of beautiful black eyes. Her little eyes flickered. Suddenly, a loud drumming sound came from his abdomen. Mo Lien lowered his head and reached out to touch her shriveled little stomach. A trace of heartache flashed across his eyes. Chapter 1161. He didn't know what had happened to this little thing recently. Did she not take good care of herself these past few days? He kept feeling that she had lost quite a bit of weight. That originally round place seemed to have also become thinner. Ai. His heart felt so bad. He had taken great pains to raise her until she was a little rounder, but after a few days, she had returned to her original state. Sigh. Xiao Mu also sighed along with him, looking very comical. Mo Lian's phoenix eyes revealed traces of a smile. I am your husband. He moved closer to her ear and whispered in a low voice, I am your husband, baby. He repeated it several times, his breath lingering in her ear. Although she had not recovered her sense of touch and could not feel him close to her, she still felt that it was very strange. This man was really quite good-looking. His head of waterfall-like black hair that hung down to the lake's surface was gently parted by the wind. At this time, he was holding the little fellow and sitting with her on that large rock. He lowered his head and stared at her with those pure black phoenix eyes without blinking, as if he wanted to carve her into the depths of his bones and never let her go. The deep affection engraved in those eyes, even if the little fellow was someone who had lost her love and didn't feel anything at the moment, she could almost feel that something was wrong. It was too strong. Arbor reached out her little hand and pushed Mo Lian's handsome face away. The lake breeze gently blew through his jade-white robe and his jade belt slightly fluttered in the wind. It was the same feeling he gave her at this moment, very ethereal and pure. What a strange man. Husband. She blinked her eyes. That silly little appearance fell into Mo Lian's eyes and was especially cute. Yes, husband. Arbor moved her little legs and thought in distress. This person had clearly been hindering her cultivation, but why couldn't she do anything to him? Logically speaking, anyone who hindered her cultivation should be erased, but Miss Chow didn't want to do anything to this person in front of her. Maybe it was because he was handsome. A golden drumstick that was roasted until it was glossy with oil suddenly waved in front of Arbor. Arbor blinked again and again. For a moment, she thought it was an illusion, so she reached out and pinched his jade-like cheek. Does it hurt? Darling Chow asked. Hiss. What a strong hand. Mo Lian creased his good-looking brows and nodded honestly. Only then did Arbor snatch the drumstick and take a bite, wiping his oily little hands on his moon-white robe sleeve. Mo Lian chuckled, lowered his head and hugged her waist. He leaned over and kissed her white and tender little face, thinking to himself, no matter how his JoJo has changed, it's still his. Even if she didn't remember him for the time being, it didn't matter as long as she remembered him again. Moreover, Mo Lian suspected that the reason why JoJo had become like this was probably related to Dingyun from Beijing Manor. Did Dingyun give her some kind of medicine? It must be. Looking at that guy's wretched appearance, he must have fed his baby some medicine and then tried to force his baby to stay by his side. Yes, that's right. This must be the truth. No matter how quick-witted Mo Lian was, he probably wouldn't have thought of it. The reason why Arbor, this little fellow, became like this was all because of the disaster-courting talisman that she drew herself. Arbor finished eating the drumstick and wiped her oily little hands on his clean robe. Only then did she move her arms and legs, wanting to get out of his embrace and go into the water to continue cultivating. Chapter 1162. The taste of today's food wasn't bad. It was crispy and fragrant, unlike in the past where everything tasted like wax. Mo Lian's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick as he immediately saw through her intentions. He hugged her little body and whispered in her ear, "Baby, baby. Let's go home first." Arbor turned her little face to look at him as the voice in her heart kept urging her, "Cultivate, cultivate, cultivate." She also hurriedly cried out, "Cultivate, cultivate, cultivate." Mo Lien was stunned as he reached out to hold her hands and feet and hurriedly said, "All right, all right, all right, cultivate, cultivate, cultivate. How about I bring you back to the Eastern Palace to cultivate? That place has denser mystic energy than here." He had to coax her back first before anything else, Mo Lien secretly said in his heart. Arbor tilted her head at him as a faint dazed look flashed past her bright eyes. Eastern Palace to cultivate. What kind of place was that? Cultivate. Cultivate, cultivate. All right, cultivate, cultivate. That place has denser mystic energy than here. Cultivating there is much faster than cultivating here at Juicy Lake. Darling Chow shook her head. Not going, I want to cultivate here. This person would hinder her cultivation. It would make her uneasy. Look, he was obstructing her right now. He was just too hateful. Mo Lien's face subconsciously darkened as he wrapped his arms around her waist and carried her up as he said firmly, "Let's go back to the palace." This time, no matter what, he had to put her right under his nose. He could let her do whatever she wanted, but not returning to the palace was out of the question. Darling Chow immediately got angry as she leaned on his shoulder, revealing her little white teeth as she bit him hard. This bite of her little teeth was just like scratching an itch. Mo Lien turned his head to look at her with an unusually determined expression. "Be good, let's go home first." The little fellow shook her head like a rattledrum. "Humph." He actually yelled at her. Arbor was furious. She didn't know why, but she felt that this person wouldn't yell at her in the past. He had changed. He didn't love her anymore. It had to be known that although she had lost her 7 emotions and 6 desires and had her memories blocked, she was still subconsciously attracted to Mo Lien after interacting with him. In front of Prince Mo, she had always been a little emperor. Don't even mention being wronged, he had never even raised his voice. How dare he yell at her now? Darling Chow was very unhappy. She struggled to land on the rock, turned around, and simply faced him with the back of her head. Mo Lien didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She reached out and pulled her little hand. She raised her arms and hugged her from behind. She whispered, "Baby, it's my fault. I shouldn't have been so loud. Don't be angry, okay?" Did he think that by saying a few nice words, she would not be angry? Darling Chow snorted inwardly and continued to ignore him. "Baby." Mo Lien sighed softly. He grabbed her little hand and turned her body to face him. He raised his hand and caressed her soft little face. "Good Jojo, what can I do to appease your anger? Why don't you hit me? It'll be fine as long as your anger subsides." Humph. Arbor raised her chin and rolled her eyes. Mo Lien couldn't help but pull her into his embrace. His expression was somewhat melancholic as he said faintly, "Jojo, we haven't seen each other in a long time. Don't be angry with me. Do you know how much I've missed you and missed you during this period of time?" Ever since he found out that she had been transported out of the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm, he was about to go crazy and searched for her all day long. It's already 4 p.m. To be honest, I'm also rather dumbfounded. See you in a few hours. Chapter 1163. Now that he had finally found her, he would not let her go no matter what. Arbor's heart stirred slightly, but she still raised her head and looked at him with a serious expression. "Cultivate." Mo Lien nodded. Okay, we'll go back and cultivate now." After saying that, he did not give her a chance to object. While carrying her, Mo Lien's figure flashed towards the lakeshore. However, he thought to himself, his darling has turned into a cultivation maniac. What to do? It's so urgent. Cultivating every day, what should he do? What if on the day of the wedding, in the middle of the wedding ceremony, this baby suddenly told him to cultivate, cultivate, cultivate. How could he endure that? Mo Lien carried his little girl with a melancholy expression and mounted the horse. After leaving the vicinity of Zhuzi Lake, they headed towards the direction of the Forbidden Palace. After leaving the Honghai Temple, they arrived at the main street. There were many people on the street, so Mo Lien slowed down the speed of his horse. At this moment, a group of people came from the corner of the main street, and some people cheered. Mo Lien pulled on the reins and frowned slightly. Carrying arbor, he urged the horse to head towards the side of the road. He did not intend to meet with that group of people directly to avoid trouble. Cultivate. The little fellow tugged at his hair in dissatisfaction and muttered. What a waste of time, she was in a hurry to cultivate now. Okay, cultivate, we'll go home and cultivate right away. Mo Lien smiled and rubbed her head helplessly. His gaze followed the crowd and looked forward. On the street, a group of soldiers with neat military attire were holding long spears and driving the people to the sides of the road, creating a large road in the middle. The soldiers' long spears formed a line, blocking the crowd of people who were watching the commotion. On each of their young faces, there was an expressionless coldness. The sound of horse hooves could be heard. The people looked over excitedly, their eyes shining with anticipation. They saw a handsome young man around 25 years old on a fine horse with a jet-black mane slowly coming over. The man was abnormally tall and powerful. He carried a long spear on his back with his left hand and a horse's reins with his right hand. He wore a golden crown on his head and a pair of black boots with cloud patterns on his feet. On his angular face, there was a pair of stern eyes that were bright and full of expression. His tightly pursed lips did not reveal a trace of a smile. Instantly, a small commotion broke out in the crowd. Heavens, the vassal prince of Nan, the vassal prince of Nan has returned to the capital. It's our invincible and victorious vassal prince of Nan. I heard that this time, the crown prince defeated the northern Qi kingdom and captured their princess and 2 princes. Ha ha ha, you've really raised the prestige of our great Mo kingdom. Look, those behind must be the Ding slaves of northern Qi. Smiles appeared on the faces of the commoners as they fell to their knees. Congratulations to the crown prince for his victory. The vassal prince of Nan, Chou Fu, was the first to arrive, accompanied by several valiant generals as he swaggered on his tall horse. Behind him were several hundred northern Qi Ding slaves in ragged clothes, their faces covered in grime, and their clothes were tied up with 2 to 3 ropes. Those Ding slaves, regardless of their age, gender, all had their right hands tied up with ropes. One by one, they formed a long line. The soldiers' whips chased after them from behind, shouting for them to hurry on their way. The young crown princess leaned into Mo Lien's embrace with her eyes wide open. Seeing an old grandfather stumble and fall to the ground, the soldiers' whips mercilessly lashed out. In just a few moments, that old man was covered in blood, and his cries and shouts filled the street. On the other hand, the commoners on both sides of the street watched with relish. Chapter 1164. At this moment, 2 riders arrived at lightning speed. The eldest young master of the state Duke of Qing's estate, General of Public Might Shi Guangfeng, and a retainer cupped their fists toward the vassal prince of Nan, Chou Fu. General Hu Zhen, Feng has come to welcome the general's entourage under the great king's orders. Thank you for your trouble, General Shi. The vassal prince of Nan's stern expression remained unchanged as he nodded indifferently. Under the great king's orders, northern Qi kingdom's prisoners of war are to be temporarily escorted to the North Barracks prison and be under strict supervision. Vassal prince, please. Shi Guangfeng gestured as he inadvertently cast a glance in Prince Mo's direction. The vassal prince of Nan, Chou Fu, glanced at Shi Guangfeng indifferently and nodded before following him to the king's palace to meet the emperor. The young crown princess pointed at those prisoners of war in tattered clothes and looked up at Prince Mo, only to see him slightly narrowing his eyes as if he was pondering something. Husband. Prince Mo lowered his head to look at her and was secretly amused. He poked her small chin with his finger. What do you want to tell your husband? I don't like it. The young crown princess knitted her delicate brows in displeasure. Prince Mo was truly the person who understood his beloved wife the best in the world. Back then, when his darling was too lazy to speak a single word, he could instantly understand the baby's meaning through eye contact, not to mention now. The little fellow was saying that she didn't like those soldiers viciously bullying an old man who didn't have the strength to truss a chicken. Your husband also doesn't like it. Prince Mo immediately nodded and stood on his beloved wife's side without any moral integrity. Wait for your husband to return and understand the situation. Let's return to the palace first. Just as he was about to leave on his horse, he saw that the retainer that Shi Guangfeng brought along had a conflict with two high-ranking officers under the vassal prince of Nan's command. The retainer was called Shi Zhong, and he was an important subordinate of the general of public might, Shi Guangfeng. At this moment, Shi Zhong and the two high-ranking officers under the vassal prince of Nan's command were glaring at each other. If I say no, it means no. You can't take these two away. The vassal prince of Nan's subordinate, that middle-aged man with a wide mouth and nose, furiously said, these two people aren't captives from the northern Qi kingdom. They are two mermen that our general captured and specially brought back to the capital. He planned to peel off their merman pearls and present them to his mother, Princess Anam. You can't take them away. The two mermaids were around 18 years old. They were wearing ragged white undergarments and had been hiding in the prison wagon, silently crying and trembling. How can you prove that these two are mermen? Shi Zhong said angrily, I have been ordered by the great king to escort all prisoners of war to the north camp. Are you going to defy the order? Bullshit. The man with a wide mouth and nose cursed. Do you not understand human language? I already said that these two women are not prisoners of war from northern Qi. The two of them were mermaids. This was because the shark pearl would lose its effect in less than an hour after it left the body. Therefore, our heir apparent specially escorted the two of them back to the capital and took an hour to extract the mermaid pearl from their bodies. Do you understand or not, huh? Old Jia, if this person doesn't believe us, then let him see for himself. Another young general with a wretched expression suddenly laughed. He tapped the whip in his hand and lashed it towards the prison cart. Slap! The whip landed on the prison wagon, and the tip of the whip ripped open the cloth covering one of the mermaid's legs, revealing a fair calf. Don't worry. You may see it as a leg now, but it will be a fishtail later, ahaha. That retainer still wanted to lash the whip over, but his eyes revealed a somewhat vulgar glint. Chapter 1165. Shi Zhong raised his hand to stop him with a sullen expression. We've already captured them, so there's no need to make things difficult for these two young ladies, right? That young general scoffed and crossed his arms as he looked at Shi Zhong provocatively. These are people that our general captured. What does it have to do with you? Take them away and escort them back to the prince's estate. At the young general's command, the old man driving the prison carriage brandished his whip. Shi Zhong blocked the carriage with his horse and sneered, after entering the capital, they're all prisoners of war. Escort them all back to the north barracks. Shi Zhong, are you courting death? The young general Nian Chong raised the whip in his hand with a frosty expression. If you dare to block this young lord's path again, be careful that this whip doesn't have eyes. Oh. How blind. Prince Mo, who had spurred his horse over, replied leisurely. Everyone was startled when they turned to look. Shi Zhong immediately dismounted and knelt on one knee in greeting. This general, Shi Zhong, greets Your Highness the Crown Prince. Prince Mo raised his hand slightly to have Shi Zhong rise. Then, his cold and sharp gaze shot towards the vassal prince of Nan's subordinates. The group of generals and soldiers led by old Jia and Nian Chong all lowered their heads and knelt down. However, Nian Chong's shifty gaze roved over Arbor's face, and a trace of amazement flitted across his eyes. Arbor tugged on the crown prince's hair and struggled to get him to let go. Then, she leaped onto the ground and quickly ran towards the prison carriage. Mo Lian helplessly glanced at his little wife. He raised his hand and released a burst of mystic energy, chopping off the copper lock on the prison carriage. The prison door opened, and Arbor extended her small hand. Everyone turned to look at her, thinking that she was going to help the two pitiful young ladies out of the prison carriage. However, that was actually the case. Slap! Arbor slapped one of the young ladies' head and reprimanded her as if she was scolding a child. What are you crying for? All of you, shut up. Everyone, Useless things, getting angry at the sight of them. Why were this group of mermen always so weak? Every day, they would be captured by people. Every day, there would be people who wanted to kill them or cut them open to take their pearls and beautify them. All day long. Could it be that she had seen captured mermen before? Something flashed in Arbor's mind, but it was so fast that she couldn't catch it. Those sealed memories were like a fleeting view. Every time she wanted to take a closer look, there was nothing left. What a strange feeling. The little fellow blinked his eyes. Seeing the two girls hugging their heads and sobbing inside the prison carriage, he couldn't help but go up and slap the other girl's head. He shouted rudely, "Come down by yourself." Mo Lian's lips twitched. Although his Bao couldn't remember anything for the time being, her violent nature hadn't changed at all. The two mermaids shivered and hugged their heads as they walked down from the prison cart. Their frightened eyes kept moving back and forth on Arbor's body. With a shake of his hand, Arbor took out 2 coats from his inner world and threw them to the two of them. The two girls hurriedly received them and put them on while expressing their thanks repeatedly. Arbor turned and walked a few steps. When she turned back and saw that the 2 fools were still rooted to the ground, she couldn't help but shout at them, "Come here." The 2 mermaids trembled slightly and hurriedly followed. However, they hadn't taken 2 steps when they saw Nian Chong straighten his body halfway and reach out to block their path. No! This is to be brought back to the vassal king of Nan's estate. Nian Chong! Old merchant shouted at him, meaning for him to quickly shut up. Chapter 1166. Nian Chong shut his mouth in annoyance, but his hand gesture was very obvious as he continued to block those 2 mermaids. A strange emotion surfaced in Arbor's mind. The long-lost anger that was missing from the 7 emotions and 6 desires had returned. Arbor angrily glared at those 2 submissive mermaids and roared at them again, "Come here. Everyone, Why the hell did they feel that the little girl before them was inexplicably adorable? Those 2 mermaids immediately moved at Arbor's command and hastily trotted over. When they saw Nian Chong blocking their path, they also used all their strength to push him aside. Clip-clop, clip-clop, clip-clop. The 2 men dismounted from their horses when they were only a few steps apart. "Little junior sister, you're fine." Situi and Duanyu, who had rushed over after receiving the news, quickly walked toward Arbor. Mo Lian face-bombed exasperatedly. Sure enough, he saw his little fellow turn to glance at Duanyu and Situi before rolling her eyes and turning her face away. Duanyu, Mo Lian, why did Jojo roll her eyes at me? Duanyu simply didn't dare to believe his eyes. How many years had it been since she rolled her eyes at him? Ever since he suffered at her hands at Kwoto Village's Hulun Mountain, they reconciled not long after. What was the meaning of this eye roll? Mo Lien simply didn't want to bother with him, but when she saw Situi looking over curiously, she explained dryly, "She doesn't even recognize me right now, so what do you think?" "What?" Duan Yu looked at Mo Lien in shock before looking at the little fellow. "Little junior sister, you got skinnier. How did you get skinnier after going to the mystic realm? Now that you're back, hurry and have Prince Mo properly nourish your body." Situi was still nagging at the side, but Arbor didn't even look at him out of the corner of her eye. "Little junior sister, little junior sister." Situi paced back and forth beside her and finally received an impatient look from the little fellow. "So funny, who is this person?" He was so long-winded that she had no idea what he was talking about. Situi clearly understood the meaning in the little fellow's eyes, and could only remain silent. However, Duan Yu laughed out loud and pushed him away. "Go away. Let me." Mo Lien sneered. "Do you think she can recognize you just because you're here?" Duan Yu arrived in front of Arbor in a single stride. He took out a small square box and opened it before handing it to her. "Look, this is my newly developed large-scale firearm, the 9 Thunder Jade Heavens. It's extremely powerful. I've tried it before. It's really fun. It's even more interesting than the core ravaging thunder. The fire it shoots out can bounce very far. If you call me, I'll give it to you and teach you how to play with it." Situi and Mo Lien both turned to look at him. Did this guy have any shame at all when he spoke like he was trying to trick a child? This 9 Thunder Jade Heavens was emerald green and round, and there was even a small emerald green bamboo tube that could be locked tightly beside it. It looked quite novel. Arbor glanced at that wooden box before reaching over and closing the lid with a bang. She silently snatched the small box from Duan Yu's hands and silently stuffed it into her inner world. That small action was done smoothly, as if this 9 Thunder Jade Heavens belonged to her in the first place. Chapter 1167. Duan Yu was taken aback and exclaimed in exasperation, "You haven't called me yet." Mo Lien, Situi couldn't resist bursting into laughter. "Don't be silly, I already said I don't know you. Prince Mo, may I ask why little junior sister doesn't know who you are? When will she recover? Is there a need to ask? It must be that punk from Beijing Manor's doing." Duan Yu said without hesitation. He must have wanted to bring the little fellow back to Beijing Manor to hide her, but who knew that he would encounter us on the way? "That can't be, right?" Situi grumbled. Mo Lien and Duan Yu both ignored him because they both happened to be thinking the same thing. No matter how quick-witted these two were, they absolutely wouldn't have thought that Miss Chiao was the one who courted disaster and caused today's situation. "All right, Jojo, let's go home first." Mo Lien bent down to extend her hand. Arbor looked at him seriously and corrected, "Cultivate." Right, cultivate. Let's go home and cultivate." Mo Lien nodded and waved at her with a grin. It was only then that Arbor placed her small hand in his. In the next instant, she felt her body lighten as she landed sideways on the horse and leaned into his embrace. "Cultivate what?" Duan Yu glanced at the little fellow in confusion. How come he didn't know that Jojo was so diligent? There are so many things you don't know. The Crown Prince gave him a figure-it-out-yourself look. He immediately praised his Bao. "Our Jojo has been extremely diligent recently. Do you know, her current cultivation is almost catching up to her senior brother Situ." Situ Yi's eyes widened as he sneaked a glance at Arbor. "Little junior sister, you're so awesome." Darling Chow understood the word awesome and gave Situ Yi a tsundra look as she nodded. Situ Yi then chuckled and pointed at Arbor. "Look, little junior sister is paying attention to me." What a clown that Mo Lien and Duan Yu both rolled their eyes at him. "Prepare 2 horses for the 2 of them." Mo Lien turned to Shi Zhong and ordered. Shi Zhong immediately cupped his fists and agreed. He ordered 2 of his subordinates to dismount and lead the horses to the 2 mermaids. The 2 mermaids hurriedly got on their horses and held the reins tightly. They stole a glance at Arbor. "What are you looking at? Keep up!" Arbor yelled at the 2 of them. He wanted to get angry whenever he saw them. Weakling, that the 2 women's bodies trembled slightly, but they quickly and obediently followed after him. Seeing this, Nian Chong hurriedly stood up and said, "Please wait." Nian Chong. Old merchant pulled him back, but he couldn't stop his impulsive temper. Paw! A green vine whip abruptly darted out from Chow Mu's sleeve and lashed at Nian Chong's shoulder without any room for objection. This sudden change caused everyone to raise their heads in shock. Their gazes changed slightly as they looked at her. "How dare you!" Arbor rebuked angrily, her face icy. "The crown princess will accept these 2 women. Do you have any objections?" Mo Lien's indifferent gaze swept across everyone present. The vassal prince of Nan's soldiers all lowered their heads under this intimidating pressure. None of them dared to object. Crown princess. She was that vicious and merciless crown princess. A furious glint flitted across Nian Chong's eyes as he recalled what Princess Anam had once mentioned to him. His elder brother, Nian Kuei, seemed to have died tragically at the hands of this crown princess. Chapter 1168. This person's methods were extremely vicious. Just because Commandery Princess Hui and had a small conflict with her, she was willing to destroy a wisp of her brother's soul in order to murder Commandery Princess Hui and, causing the explosion to affect Commandery Princess Hui and. Nian Chong clutched the wound on his shoulder with one hand and braced himself to put on a righteous expression. Of course, the crown princess can have these 2 mermaids if she wants them. However, is it possible for Crown Prince Consort to promise this general that if this general takes out 2 shark pearls, please gift one to the vassal king consort of Nan so that our vassal prince can express filial piety to his mother? When the 2 mermaids heard this, they immediately looked at Arbor in horror. Could it be that the 2 of them escaped from the wolf's den and fell into the tiger's den again? Arbor glowered at Nian Chong, her almond-shaped eyes practically spitting fire. She was very angry, but she did not know why. Suddenly, a vine whip lashed out at that person's mouth. Nian Chong's pupils contracted upon seeing this, and he reflexively dodged to the side, avoiding that vine whip. But then, another vine whip swiftly landed on his arm, shattering the wrist guard on his arm in an instant. A glaring whip mark appeared on his tanned arm. It was so deep that bone could be seen, and blood spurted out. Old merchant and the others all sucked in a cold breath. They were apprehensive about the little crown princess's ruthless methods and her frightening cultivation. "Hubby, kill him." The young crown prince consort suddenly turned her small face around and shouted at Mo Lien in a huff. She had only lost some of her common sense due to her memories being blocked, but she was not truly stupid. It was clear at a glance who was showing her kindness and who was showing her malice. Duan Yu's mouth twitched, and he glared at Mo Lien beside him in displeasure. "You told her that you are her hubby. Is it not so?" Mo Lien cast him a glance before reaching out his large palm to rub the young crown prince consort's head soothingly. "Okay, let's kill him." He knew her too well and knew why she was angry. Nian Chong was really bold. He actually dared to use words against his little wife. His words were indirectly telling others that the reason the crown princess had saved the 2 mermaids was to take the mermaid pearls from their bodies. This was simply slander. Arbor was naturally angry. She didn't want the shark pearl. How could something like that be beautifying? If she wanted to beautify her looks, she could just eat the beautifying pills. She could make a big pot of them herself. why would she need the shark pearls? The crown prince waved his hand, and a few nimble figures suddenly appeared beside Nian Chong, pressing him down onto the ground. Nian Chong cried out in pain. Only now did he reveal some fear in his heart. Nian Chong. Old merchant and the rest looked over in shock. They hurriedly knelt a few steps forward and cupped their fists at Prince Mo, begging for mercy. Your Highness, please calm down. Nian Chong is just a little impulsive. He doesn't disrespect the crown princess. Oh. He doesn't have disrespect. Mo Lian glanced at Nian Chong coldly. But why did this crown prince hear dissatisfaction and reprimand in his words? Nian Chong struggled hard and shouted, Your Highness is wise. This general doesn't have such intentions. This general has followed the Lord Vassal Prince for many years and has fought all over the country. Not long ago, we even won a complete victory against Northern Qi. This general is loyal to the great king with a pure heart. The sun and moon can testify to this general's loyalty, and only the heavens can testify. Chapter 1169. This punk was reminding him that he had just returned to the capital after a victorious battle with the vassal prince of Nan. If he killed him on the streets, it would chill the soldiers' morale and might even cause the people's dissatisfaction. Mo Lian curled her lips and suddenly smiled. Although she had a smile on her face, her eyes flickered with an abnormally icy glint. Let this monarch tell you something. Mo Lian's eyes flickered, and she sneered, If this monarch wants you to die today, then you definitely won't be able to see tomorrow's sun. Raising his eyelids slightly, he nodded at the two secret guards in acknowledgement. The latter's sword suddenly slid across Nian Chong's neck so quickly that he didn't have any room to maneuver. His body slid heavily to the ground, and his eyes were wide open as he died with remaining grievances. On the side, old merchant and the others also felt a bone-chilling coldness rising from the soles of their feet. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly and could only sneak glances at the crown prince. The tens of millions of people on the streets all slowed their breathing and knelt there with their heads bowed, not even daring to look up. When His Highness the Crown Prince raged, corpses truly littered the ground. No one dared to face His Highness's wrath directly. Go, investigate this person's evil deeds and publicize it in the central plaza so that everyone knows, the Crown Prince ordered indifferently. Yes. Summon Censor Li and Censor Chen for this monarch. This monarch wants to submit a memorial to the great king and report the vassal prince of Nan for not managing his troops well. Everyone. As expected, the Crown Prince the Great was a vengeful person. The vassal prince of Nan had just returned to the capital, so he probably hadn't even warmed up his seat at the great king's and was about to be reported by His Highness the Crown Prince. Duan Yu almost laughed out loud and turned his horse around. I didn't come here in vain today. He watched a pretty good show. Prince Mo glanced at Shi Zhong again. What are you spacing out for? Take these northern Qi prisoners of war to the north camp. If anyone dares to obstruct us, this monarch permits you to kill them. Yes, this general obeys. Shi Zhong's spirits were lifted. He immediately called for his subordinates to take over the prisoners in the hands of old merchant and the others, escorting them to the north camp outside the city. Let's return to the palace. Prince Mo narrowed his eyes and turned his horse to leave. After a long time, the petrified old merchant and the others on the street finally moved slightly and looked at each other in dismay. The crowd dispersed, and no one dared to look at the corpse on the ground. Although the vassal prince of Nan was quite formidable after coming back victorious, his subordinates couldn't be so rude and contradicting in front of His Highness the Crown Prince. To be executed by His Highness in a fit of anger, he could only blame his bad luck. Their crown prince was no ordinary person. Not to mention a mere vassal prince of Nan, Perhaps even the venerable vassal king of Nan wouldn't dare to be so impudent in front of Her Highness. After the crown prince carried Arbor back to the palace, he first sent a message to the Chow family to explain the situation and appease them. Then, he had someone bring Xiao Yao over to serve her. However, once the little girl arrived at this unfamiliar place, she looked left and right to find a cultivation spot. After searching for a long time, she glared at the crown prince accusingly. Okay, we'll go cultivate in a bit. Let's eat first. You'll only have the strength to properly cultivate after eating. My Jojo, you've lost so much weight from hunger. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have let you go to the Mystic Beast Forest Mystic Realm to train in that damned place. Chapter 1170. Arbor glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. Husband. Mo Lien was overjoyed. He gave himself 10,000 likes in his heart. How could he have been so quick-witted that day? He had whispered into the little girl's ear, I'm your husband, I'm your husband. It had worked. This silly little girl probably thought that his name was Hubby. Ha ha ha. The little girl had been so obedient throughout the journey. She had called him hubby every time she opened her mouth. Hearing her made him happy and comfortable. Coming. Dinner is here. Xiao Yao directed a row of junior palace maids as they walked in with plates of dinner. As she busied herself with setting the table, she nagged, Miss, why have you lost so much weight? Have you been eating all this time? Arbor naturally ignored her. Her eyes were glued to the plates of food that were being brought in. Tap, tap, tap. The little girl strode towards the table. Her fair and tender little hand reached out towards a crispy roasted goose leg. Xiao Yao. Mo Lien gave her a look. Xiao Yao understood and turned around. She said to the junior palace maids, you can leave first. Yes. Xiao Yao turned around again and saw her little master gnawing on a roasted goose leg. She couldn't help but wipe the corners of her eyes. How long has my miss been hungry? She didn't even bother to pick up her chopsticks. She was so hungry that she just grabbed it with her bare hands. How pitiful. Arbor took 2 bites. Her eyes glanced at the braised pork shoulder on the plate next to her. Her little hand stealthily reached for it again. Mo Lien went forward and took her little hand. Let's wash our hands first. As he spoke, he took the greasy roasted goose leg from her hand and pulled her to wash her hands. When they came back from washing, Arbor grunted at him. Her eyes looked meaningfully at a plate of prawns in the distance. Hence, Mo Lien carried that plate over and helped her grab the shrimp with his hands. As he peeled the shrimp to feed her, he asked absent-mindedly, Chow Chow, do you still remember my name? Arbor nodded vigorously and swallowed the prawn that he had peeled. Husband. That's right. Mo Lien went up to her with a smile and kissed her on the cheek. Don't forget about it in the future. Arbor nodded obediently. Xiao Yao, who was watching from the side, rolled her eyes speechlessly. His Highness was too black-bellied, bullying their family's young miss for being so dim-witted. Previously, His Highness had only told her that Miss had been harmed by Ding Yun from Beijing Manor. Now that she had returned, she had forgotten a lot of things from the past. Looking at it now, it was true. Your Highness, do you need chopsticks? Xiao Yao handed over a pair of silver chopsticks and asked with a light cough. I don't want it. Our Jojo likes to eat with her hands. I'll accompany her. Mo Lien waved his hand nonchalantly and caught a fish for her in passing, which she had been staring at the entire time. Xiao Yao was speechless. No, she had to keep a lookout outside. If Her Majesty the Queen came and saw this, she would be furious. Her son, such an outstanding and perfect son, was going crazy with his wife all day long. "Jojo, is it good?" Mo Lien saw that she was eating happily and couldn't help but feel happy. Xiao Mu nodded and wiped her small hand on his sleeve while she was at it. Crown Prince Mo pursed his lips and said, "You wiped me all over with oil, so you have to bathe together with me in a bit." "Let's bathe together, okay, Jojo, Jojo, Jojo." Chapter 1171. Mo Lien blinked as she smiled at the little fellow. Xiao Mu glanced at him and nodded her small head in confusion. His silly look was truly too amusing. Mo Lien hugged her and lowered his head, burying his face in her hair. His body trembled as he chuckled softly. When Hui Feng, who was crouching on the roof, saw this, he involuntarily rolled his eyes and thought, "Your Highness, quickly pick up your moral integrity. Jojo is too oily, don't wipe it on my face." Mo Lien helplessly pulled down her small hand and wiped the little fellow's face with a brocade handkerchief. Suddenly, they heard Xiao Yao's earth-shattering voice outside the door. "Her Majesty the Queen has arrived. Commandery Princess Yi and has also come." Xiao 11Z, who was standing next to the door, was nearly intimidated by Xiao Yao's loud voice. The Queen had been supported by Green Mammy all the way here. When she heard this, she paused and looked suspiciously at Xiao Yao, who was shouting at the top of her lungs. "Your master is inside, so why are you standing outside the door? Are you on the lookout?" Xiao Yao really wanted to slap herself. Why did she say that for no reason? She had to be on the lookout in case Her Majesty the Queen came. She really freaking came this time. The crisp sound of a plate clattering came from inside. Xiao 11Z quickly turned around and ran inside with small, quick steps. He hastily curtsied and shouted, oh no, Your Highness, Her Majesty the Queen has come. So it's not good for this Empress to come." Empress Xiao glared at Xiao 11Z sternly. Xiao 11Z's legs turned to jelly as he crawled toward the Crown Prince's feet. This servant misspoke. 1 minute ago, when His Highness the Crown Prince, who was fooling around with his wife, heard Xiao Yao shout, his hand trembled, and the prawn he was about to stuff into the little fellow's mouth almost fell to the ground. Darling Qiao hurriedly stuck out her small tongue and bit the prawn into her mouth. She chewed twice and swallowed it. The Crown Prince hurriedly took the handkerchief and hurriedly wiped his little wife's mouth and hands. Within a minute, he tidied himself up slightly and pulled his wife up. Queen Zhao crossed the tall threshold of the Eastern Palace's bedchamber in a short while and led a group of palace maids and nannies inside. At a glance, he saw his son greeting him with a grin. "Mother, why are you here?" Empress Xiao frowned slightly and glanced at her son. "Muhu heard that your little crown princess was found, so I came to see her." Mo Lien hurriedly pulled her hand behind her back and tugged at little Blockhead's little hand. Arbor walked to his side in a daze and glanced at the group of women in front of him in confusion. She glanced over and felt that all the palace maids looked the same. And was standing at the front of the row of royal maids beside Empress Xiao, retreating half a step to show her respect. Xiao Qiao, that child, also regarded as a royal maid, and her gaze brushed past her face. On the other hand, seized the opportunity to scrutinize her. With this look, a faint melancholy surfaced in her heart. This little crown princess in front of her looked a bit younger, but her looks were exceptionally refined. She couldn't compare to her. She couldn't compare at all. "Jojo, this is Mother Queen. Her name is Mother Queen, so call her Mother Queen." The Crown Prince poked fun at his wife in a small voice. As a result, our dear Arbor stiffly called out to Empress Xiao, "Mother Queen." Empress Xiao. Emicham, Empress Xiao responded. Chapter 1172. Although this little fellow's tone was stiff, she had at least called her royal mother. Compared to that aloof, Your Majesty the Queen, with a stoic face, she was a bit more pleasing to the eye now. Xiao Yao, who was standing on the side like a candle, quickly lowered her head, her shoulders trembling slightly. Mo Lien turned his handsome face and winked at his wifey with a smile. Many thanks for royal mother's concern. Jojo is doing quite well. Due to her long seclusion in the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm, she still needs to recuperate after coming back. After a few days, when her body is better, this son will bring Jojo to visit grandmother and royal mother. Empress Xiao nodded upon hearing this. On the side, Yi then commented with a smile, I heard that Miss Xiao's party came out of the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm early this time. I wonder what happened. The Crown Prince looked up and swept her an indifferent glance. Upon seeing this, Anne's heart sank slightly, but she still maintained a smile as she gazed at the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. Did Anne say something wrong? The Crown Princess's title was personally conferred by Royal Father. Are you dissatisfied with Royal Father's decree by calling her Miss Xiao? Prince Mo asked with a smirk as he raised his eyebrows. Anne was startled, and she hastily knelt down to apologize. It was Anne who misspoke, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Anne did not mean to defy the great king's decree. That's good. Prince Mo nodded as he curled his lips coldly. Otherwise, this Crown Prince will mistakenly think that you are dissatisfied with the great king. Anne quickly protested while kneeling there in a cold sweat. Anne doesn't dare. Empress Xiao glanced at her before mediating with a smile. All right, Anne, get up. Crown Prince, you don't need to be so harsh on Anne. She is your grandmother's adopted granddaughter, so she can be considered half your younger sister. Mo Lien nodded noncommittally. The maidservant Su hurriedly ran 2 steps forward with a distressed expression on her face. She bent down and helped her young miss up. The master and servant looked at each other and suppressed the faint light in their eyes. Your Highness, Empress Xiao chuckled as she took 2 steps forward and affectionately held her eldest son's hand. The Crown Prince was caught by Empress Xiao before he could retract his hand. As soon as he pulled, his hand was covered in grease. The Crown Prince's mouth twitched slightly, and he hurriedly looked at Empress Xiao, who had a strange expression on her face. He laughed dryly and said, Royal Mother, just now, a plate fell. My hands were covered in oil, and I didn't have time to tell Imperial Mother. If the Queen was not present, Xiao Yao would have laughed out loud. His Highness must be stupefied right now. Just now, when he was fooling around with Miss, he was so happy. You child, you're already so old, yet you still don't know how to take care of yourself. Empress Xiao cast a glance behind her. The green mammy immediately led people forward with a basin of water and a clean towel. After Empress Xiao personally wrung a towel to wipe her son's hands, Prince Mo instantly felt a bit awkward that he was already so old, yet he still needed his mother to wipe his hands for him. He hastily tugged at his esteemed mother and coughed lightly, saying, Mother, I'm not a child, so I can do it myself. Empress Xiao couldn't resist laughing as she said, In Mother's eyes, you will still be Mother's child even when you're 80 years old. But now that I think about it, when you were 3 years old, you weren't even as tall as a clothes rack, yet you wanted to personally put on clothes for yourself. In the end, you were so busy that the entire clothes rack collapsed and got buried by a pile of clothes. Chapter 1173. Some of the palace maids behind the queen couldn't hold back and hurriedly coughed to cover their stifled laughter. Prince Mo immediately begged for mercy. Mother, don't talk about it anymore. His wife was still here, he wanted to save face. Empress Xiao pursed her lips and laughed. But when you were young, there were so many happy things. Mother remembers that when you were 7 years old, you went hunting with your father. In the end, you encountered a super big bear that chased after your father. You were still young then and chased after the big bear with a small bow on your back. In the end, the bear didn't catch up and your father was saved by the guards. When he turned around and realized that he had lost you, he was so anxious. Prince Mo laughed awkwardly and hurriedly tugged at his mother's sleeve. Mother, don't talk about it anymore. Okay, Mother won't talk about it anymore. Empress Xiao sighed softly. After washing her son's hands, she looked at him lovingly. In the blink of an eye, you're already so big and about to get married. Mother and son looked at each other and smiled. At this moment, the little crown princess pattered over and tugged hard at the queen's sleeve. Imperial Mother, who's the big bear? Everyone. Prince Mo's mouth twitched. He held back his laughter and tugged at the little fellow's hand. Imperial Mother, Jojo is a little muddle-headed from cultivating these 2 days. Empress Xiao looked at her speechlessly. When Arbor heard the 2 words cultivating, she immediately looked up at the crown prince like a spring that had been wound up. Husband. The cultivation ground. Okay. The crown prince hurriedly nodded at her and turned to Empress Xiao. Imperial Mother, Jojo is about to break through in the next few days. I'll bring her to the cultivation ground first. Empress Xiao nodded and then nagged, it's less than 2 months until your wedding. Don't just cultivate all the time. See what you're lacking and remember to make up for it in time. Your wedding is a big event, don't neglect it. Prince Mo hurriedly nodded. Alright, you guys should rest early too. It was only then that Empress Xiao called out to Yi-en and led her outside. Mother, take care. Mo Lien squeezed the little fellow's little hand. Arbor glanced at him and stiffly called out, Mother, take care. It was only after Queen Zhao and her entourage had exited the Eastern Palace's doorstep that Crown Prince Mo couldn't resist chortling. He pulled that little fellow into his arms and pinched her small cheeks. Xiao Yao, on the other hand, couldn't help but squat on the ground and laugh. Arbor looked at Mo Lien with a serious expression. Husband, cultivate. Mo Lien was overjoyed. She held her little hand and nodded. Let's go. I'll take you to that cultivation area. He brought her into the back room of the bedchamber. His palm swept across a row of candles, and a stone door on the wall suddenly opened. Qiao Mu immediately sensed the dense mystic energy enveloping her from all directions, and her small face immediately smoothed out. Mo Lien didn't let go of her and lowered his head to rub against her head. Cultivate for the night. Come out for breakfast tomorrow morning, okay? No. Arbor immediately spread her arms and vetoed his words. I want it even if you don't want it. Mo Lien lifted her up and gazed into her eyes as he said, we'll bathe together tonight, and we'll eat breakfast together tomorrow morning. Choose one. Xiao Yao. Where's your highness's face? Arbor scratched her little head. Let's eat breakfast then. She kept feeling that this man's eyes seemed to be shining when he said, bathe together tonight. It wasn't anything good. Chapter 1174. Mo Lien chuckled and nodded, leaving Arbor alone in the cultivation room. Then let's make an appointment. Qiao Mu helplessly nodded her head. It was so strange. This person kept hindering her cultivation, but why did she especially not want to slap him to death? Jojo. Mo Lien poked her head in from outside the cultivation room and smiled at her with narrowed eyes. See you tomorrow. Arbor raised her small hand and reflexively shook her small paw. Only then did Mo Lien restrain himself from pouncing over and rubbing her in his arms again. This little fellow was seriously adorable to death. She really wanted to hug her like this. Even if they didn't do anything and just chatted for the entire night, it would also be good. She didn't want to let go at all. What was she cultivating for? It was as if this little rascal had joined a cult, talking about cultivating all day long. Prince Mo left the secret room with a melancholic expression. When he returned to his bedchamber, his gaze involuntarily kept looking in the direction of the secret room. His Jojo had returned. How wonderful! His pitiful heart that had been hanging high in the air finally seemed to land on solid ground, stabilizing his mind. My Lien section break the vassal king of an Nan's estate in the Mo kingdom capital. The gold-gilded plaque on a black background flickered under the illumination of the sunset, dignified and solemn. The grand doors opened with a rumble. A group of people supported an abnormally thin woman with slightly protruding cheeks. She had no flesh on her face, and her body was abnormally thin. That woman was not yet 50 years old, and her harsh and crafty face was currently covered in a gratified smile. Two nannies supported the woman on both sides. Their hair was coiled up, and they were dressed in servant attire. A man in his 50s stood next to them. He was dressed in a purple gold robe, and his hair and beard were several inches long. They were the old vassal king of an Nan and his vassal king consort Wu Hongmo. The husband and wife exchanged a glance and nodded with a smile. Then, they looked forward at the same time with expectant expressions. He's coming, he's coming. Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Highness is back, he's back. A green-clothed servant dashed towards the entrance of the mansion and shouted in high spirits. Quick, quick, help me over there. Wu Hongma couldn't restrain her joy as she grabbed the hands of the two mamas and called out. Princess Consort, don't worry. His Highness will come to see you soon. A mama smiled and held her hand. Under everyone's expectant gazes, the three fast horses galloped from afar to near at full speed. A black figure in the middle lightly dismounted from his horse and tossed the spear in his hand to the soldier behind him. The vassal prince of Nan, Cho Fu, hurried forward and prostrated himself in front of the old vassal king of Nan and the vassal king consort with a tall and straight posture. What ability does this child have to trouble father and mother to personally welcome me? Fu, get up, quickly get up. Princess Anam excitedly walked down the stairs and hurriedly helped him up. She was so excited that her hands trembled as she caressed her son's handsome face. She smiled happily and said, Fu, mother has been waiting for you for a long time. Finally, you have returned home. Fu has lost weight, but he has become stronger. Mother. The vassal prince of Nan, Cho Fu, smiled as he supported Princess Anam. Then, he turned to look at the smiling vassal king of Nan. Fu, greets father. It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. The old vassal king of Nan stroked his beard and chuckled. Princess Anam nodded and gently gazed at her son. Fu, you've had a long journey. It must have been hard on you. Let's talk after we return. Amen, your mother is right. Fu, let's return home first. We cooked many of your favorite dishes to welcome you back. Come in. The vassal king of Nan stroked his beard and chuckled. Chapter 1175. Thank you, father. Thank you, mother. Cho Fu nodded and supported his mother, Princess Anam, into the estate. The whole family had a harmonious reunion dinner. The father and son pair never mentioned to Princess Anam that the crown prince had lodged a complaint against the vassal prince of Nan. Princess Anam drank 2 more cups because of her son's return, and the alcohol got to her head, so she had someone help her back to her room first. What do you plan to do about that matter? After seeing his old wife leave, the vassal prince of Nen withdrew his smile and looked at his son worriedly. Don't worry, father. I've already discussed this matter with Mr. Liu and have a preliminary countermeasure. That's good. The vassal prince of Nan shook his head and sighed. I understand the great king very well. He's easily swayed. The matter of your lax management of the army isn't a big deal, but if the great king hears 3 or more people mentioning your mistake, he'll definitely have an opinion of you. This matter might not be resolved peacefully. After all, those imperial censors were like mad dogs that had bitten his son and might not let go easily. Moreover, His Highness the Crown Prince stood behind these imperial censors. Don't worry, father. This son knows what to do. The vassal prince of Nan nodded solemnly and raised his cup to pat his shoulder with a smile. Even if the great king temporarily wants you to hand over the stalwart tiger troops Commander Tally, don't refuse and just give it to him. If you're idle at home, you can also accompany your mother more. This son understands. Cho Fu lowered his head, but a faint trace of unwillingness flitted across his eyes. He had roped in the stalwart tiger troop with great difficulty, so how could he just give them away like this? Night, in the vassal prince of Nan's courtyard. Slap. A thin piece of paper was pressed down by someone. His Highness the Crown Prince petitioned the great king to punish the vassal prince for lax management of the army, a military advisor beside him said with a worried expression. In less than an hour, that person had already listed out more than a dozen of Nian Chang's crimes and posted them in the central square, announcing them to the public. Mr. Liu, what do you think of this matter? Crown Prince Chio's stern face was taut as he turned to look at the middle-aged military advisor. Mr. Liu shook his head. His Highness the Crown Prince clearly wants to use this opportunity to suppress the Crown Prince. If we don't handle this matter well, not only will our expedition to northern Qi be a failure, we might even be accused of not managing the army strictly. Damn it, I think that His Highness the Crown Prince is deliberately targeting us. A burly general said angrily, the heir led us through dangerous situations and fought for the country. Not only did he return with no merit, but he was even punished. How can I accept this? That's right. Nian Chong did rob a few good women and robbed some money, but those small mistakes are nothing compared to the merits he has made. Shut up. Mr. Liu glared at them angrily and said, look at yourselves. You've already left the stronghold for many years, but you still carry a trace of a bandit aura that's hard to change. Isn't this just handing over your weaknesses for others to use against you? Mr. Liu said, all right, you don't need to meddle in this matter. Let me discuss with the heir and see how to resolve this. All of you return to rest first. This is the Mo Kingdom capital, so all of you had better pay attention and abide by the rules. Don't make any more mistakes and let others catch you in your pigtails. Mr. Liu waved his hand, dismissing those uncouth fellows. Chapter 1176. Seeing that they had all left, Mr. Liu then looked towards the displeased Lord Vassal Prince and sighed softly. This matter was reported to Lord Vassal Prince by the Crown Prince and several imperial censors, so the great king will definitely attach great importance to it. I know. Cho Fu coldly said, he beheaded a junior general by my side on the street to give me a show of strength and a warning. He wants to tell me that as long as he wants to, there's no one he can't behead. The vassal prince of Nan sneered. The crown prince is powerful, so it's inappropriate for us to directly clash with him. Mr. Liu sighed and said, I hope Lord Vassal Prince will think thrice before doing anything. Cho Fu nodded. I will have to trouble Mr. Liu to think of a strategy for this matter. Mr. Liu nodded. Let me go back and think for a night before informing Lord Vassal Prince tomorrow. Suddenly hearing his mother's voice from outside the door, Cho Fu waved his hand to dismiss Mr. Liu. Princess Anam Wu Hongma personally walked in with a bowl of ginseng soup and handed it to her son. She looked at him with heartache and said, Fu, you've lost a lot of weight. The campaign must have been very tiring. It wasn't tiring, mother. Cho Fu pulled his mother to sit down and looked at her seriously. I've already heard about younger sister's matter, but I haven't figured out the specifics. Can mother tell me the details? At the mention of Hui and Princess Anam couldn't help but burst into tears. She grabbed her son's hand and sobbed, Fu, you have to avenge your younger sister. Your younger sister truly died too tragically. Wu Hongma gnashed her teeth at the mention of Hui En. It's all that crown princess's fault. It was that slut who harmed my daughter. Thus, she carefully recounted the entire incident to Cho Fu from beginning to end. When she reached the part where the crown princess didn't hesitate to crush Nian Kuei's soul in order to hui Huihen, Wu Hongma burst into tears again. That slut wouldn't even let off your disfigured younger sister. When we met in Shixia Valley, she actually despicably injured your younger sister again during the competition. She used some kind of witchcraft to bewitch His Highness the Crown Prince and actually instigated His Highness to burn your heavily injured younger sister to death. Ah, my Huihen, my poor daughter. You're going to die so miserably. I want to avenge your sister. I want to poison that damned crown princess. I want to poison her to death. Who would have thought that she was a person who was proficient in medicine? Not only did she see through me, she even arrested your cousin Xiaosu and locked her up in prison for a whole month. Thinking of this, Wu Hongma couldn't help but feel sad. She cried for a while. Your cousin was finally released from prison 2 days ago. But, is she still human? You didn't see it. Your cousin is so skinny, she's so pitiful. I really don't have the face to face your uncle anymore. I'm the one who harmed Xiaosu. It's me. Mother. Cho Fu reached out to hold his mother's shoulder and hurriedly comforted her, don't be sad. I'll find a way to resolve this matter. A cold glint flitted across Cho Fu's eyes. Although I didn't see that crown princess today, I did experience her vicious methods. According to my subordinate's replies, if it weren't for the fact that the crown princess wholeheartedly wanted to kill Nian Chong, the crown prince probably wouldn't have made a move against Nian Chong. He also wouldn't have thought of taking advantage of the situation to accuse me. I said that she's a demoness who brings disaster to the country and the people. His Highness the Crown Prince was captivated by her beauty, Wu Hongma fiercely said. Chapter 1177. Cho Fu's eyes flashed. This vixen. Don't be fooled by her young age, she's a complete seductress. She's very despicable. A demoness? A cold glint flashed past. Demonesses should be dealt with as soon as possible to avoid bringing disaster to the human world. Vassal King Consort Wu put away her sorrowful mood and wiped her reddened eyes before smiling at Cho Fu. Speaking of which, you are already 25 years old this year. Mom has chosen several young ladies for you, planning to hold a flower-admiring banquet and invite them over. At that time, you can take a look and tell Mom if you fancy any of them. No need, Mom. Cho Fu shook his head dryly. This son already has a vassal prince consort candidate in mind. Oh. Princess Anam was taken aback before asking with a smile, which family's young lady caught my proud son's fancy? It's Commandery Princess Ihan, mother. What? That jinx. Princess Anam's expression changed, and she quickly shook her head in denial. No. You cannot marry that jinx who has lost both her parents. Perhaps she will bring disaster to our vassal king of Nan's estate. Her fate is too tenacious. You cannot marry her. Besides, she doesn't have any family background, so she is of no help to you. That Marquis of Anne's estate is managed by her aunt, so it has nothing to do with her. Mother, as long as the Queen Dowager stands behind her, what does a mere Marquis of Anne's estate amount to? Wu Hongma sighed and said with a nod, that's true. The Queen Dowager does like her a lot, but unfortunately, her fate is still too tenacious. What will we do if she jinxes Mom and your father in the future? Mother, if you are still worried, you can go find Honghai Temple's abbot Konghui after she marries in and ask for several Buddhist seals to suppress her. Mother, it seems that no noble daughter is as honorable as her. Chiu Fu's eyes turned as he said, the one this son is marrying should naturally be the best in this world. Wu Hongma smiled with pursed red lips as she said with a nod, child, you are right. Then we will proceed with the flower-admiring banquet and invite Ian as well. My Chiao's section break, bang. 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 Mo Lian had just knocked on the door of the secret chamber and let his little wife out. They hadn't even sat down to eat breakfast when they heard the sound of wind whistling and fighting coming from outside the door. Why is it you? Audacious fellow, how dare you trespass into our eastern palace? Hui Feng let out two strange cries from outside before falling silent. An incomparably swift voice flitted inside with a whoosh, and he sat down in front of Mo Lian at once. Jojo, I'm Duan Yu. Do you remember me? Duan Yu pointed at himself with one hand and propped up his chin with the other as he gazed at Arbor's expressionless face. Arbor was gnawing on a pancake when a few more sounds of fighting came from outside. Prince Mo raised his eyebrows with a half-smile. Only to see Situ Yi's figure flash as he also ran in. Good morning, little junior sister. Senior brother, I haven't eaten breakfast yet. Just in time, let's eat together. Mo Lian chuckled as he looked at these two fellows who had come uninvited. You two have trespassed into this prince's eastern palace. What, are you thinking of rebelling? Mo Lian curled her lips mockingly. What rebellion? We are here to see little junior sister, the two answered in unison. Hui Feng and the others rushed in while panting and wiping the sweat on their foreheads. Your Highness. All right, you all can leave. Chapter 1178. These two mentally deranged fellows still had a sense of propriety in their attacks. Otherwise, Hui Feng and the others would have been beaten to the ground long ago. Hui Feng harumphed and cupped his hands before quickly retreating with his men. Hubby, cultivate. Arbor sternly gazed at this man who dug her out of her cultivation ground early in the morning. So annoying. He kept hindering her from cultivating and she couldn't hit him. If she bit him, it would be a bit uncomfortable. Mo Lian imperceptibly twitched her mouth and ordered someone to scoop a bowl of porridge over. She stirred it with a spoon and coaxed her with a grin, wait a bit. Go cultivate in the afternoon. The mystic energy inside is denser. Jojo, Jojo. Little junior sister, how are you? Situ Yi drank 2 mouthfuls of porridge before looking at her with chopsticks. Senior brother thinks that it's better to invite someone from Celestial Medicine Valley to take a look at your condition. Oh, that's Secondo, he's the disciple of Celestial Medicine Valley's Valley Master. His medical skills definitely can't be wrong. No need. Prince Mo coldly waved his hand in refusal. I've already invited a physician over. He'll examine her after breakfast. After saying this, he turned her small face around and fed her a mouthful of warm porridge. Little junior sister, you've really lost a lot of weight. Can you tell me what you encountered in that mystic realm? Situ Yi asked curiously. She doesn't even remember you. What else can she remember? Duan Yu irritably pushed Situ Yi aside and stuck his face in front of Arbor. He kept calling out, Jojo, Jojo, look at me. I'm Duan Yu. Duan Yu, do you still remember me? His name is Duan Yu, Mo Lien said as she fed the little fellow. Duan Yu, Arbor repeated. Duan Yu nearly jumped up in joy. She remembers me, she remembers me. You're a clown sent by monkeys, right? She only casually said your name, idiot. Mo Lien and Situ Yi both glanced at him with disdain. His name is Senior Brother Situ. Senior Brother Situ. Arbor spoke as if he was a little monk chanting scriptures. The corners of Situ Yi's mouth twitched as he silently glanced at Mo Lien. Mo Lien said calmly, if I don't say that, she won't know how to address me. So your name is Hubby? The two of them asked in unison. That's right. If I'm not your husband, then what am I? Mo Lien shamelessly replied. Duan Yu grumpily glanced at him. Afterwards, he propped up his chin with one hand and tilted his head to say, I wonder what kind of drug Jojo was fed to make him recognize us. The three of them looked at each other and sighed. After breakfast, the group of physicians that Mo Lien called over checked Arbor's pulse one by one, but when they left, all of them were frowning deeply. The Crown Princess was clearly healthy and didn't have any problems, so why did the Crown Prince stare at them with such a terrifying gaze every time? It was as if they hadn't diagnosed the Crown Princess' illness at all. But she wasn't sick at all. Not sick. Prince Mo glared at the last physician and angrily demanded, all of you said she wasn't sick, so why can't you recognize her if she's not sick? She didn't hit her head before. Did you examine her clearly? That unlucky physician prostrated on the ground and repeatedly kowtowed, reporting to Your Highness, this official's diagnosis is the same as theirs. Your Highness, the Crown Princess really doesn't have any problems at all. Impossible. Duan Yu shouted as he pounded the table. Chapter 1179. It must be that you guys didn't detect anything. Duan Yu retorted angrily, a bunch of quacks, quacks. Quacks. The little fellow and the parrot chattered away and also shouted along with Duan Yu. Situ Yi was a bit speechless, so he also suggested, how about I invite the Dou family's second brother Dou over to examine little junior sister? Sitting on the side, Xiaomu had long been annoyed to death from watching 17 to 18 physicians. When she saw them talking at this time, she quietly stood up by herself. After the trio discussed it, they decided that Situ Yi would go to the Dou family to invite second brother Dou into the palace to treat Arbor. However, they discovered that the little lass had already disappeared. Mo Lien wanted to cry but had no tears. She ran into the bedroom's rear room alone to take a look and sighed after coming out. She went into closed-door cultivation. Go invite him tomorrow. She probably won't come out today. The main reason was that he was worried that if he went to harass her again, she would run off in anger and disappear without a trace. Situ Yi burst out laughing, my heavens, little junior sister is so thirsty for cultivation. She ran off to cultivate just because you didn't pay attention to her for a few minutes. Mo Lien heaved a long sigh. How sullen must it be to have a wife who was so positive and diligent that she cultivated non-stop every day. What kind of medicine can make someone's head be filled with cultivation every day? Duan Yu blinked. It's too miraculous, don't you guys think so? Situ Yi quickly interjected, could it be that we wronged that punk from Beijing Manor and it wasn't his fault at all? Or perhaps, Jojo ate the wrong thing in the mystic realm. You're the one who ate the wrong thing. Mo Lien and Duan Yu rolled their eyes at him irritably. Jojo isn't that stupid. Situ Yi shrugged. Alright then. I'll invite second young Master Dou over at this time tomorrow. Remember to let me pass and don't let me barge in again. It's very annoying. Mo Lien reluctantly agreed. After sending off the two gods of plague, Huifeng's figure flashed and appeared in front of her again. Your Highness didn't attend morning court today, so you didn't know that several imperial censors had a direct confrontation with the vassal king of Nan. Mo Lien curled his lips in a spurious smile. How is it? Are the results out yet? The great king has accepted your suggestion. Today at the imperial court, it was announced that the vassal prince of Nan had rendered meritorious service in defeating Northern Qi, but he also needed to be punished for his lax management of the army. Since the two sides offset each other, it could be considered neither meritorious nor demerit. In addition, the great king also issued an edict to demote one of his generals. The edict should have reached that person's residence by now. Mo Lien sneered, what about the princess of Northern Qi? According to your wishes, the great king bestowed the Northern Qi princess to the vassal prince of Nan. Mo Lien laughed heartily. Well done. I originally wanted to let it rot in my hands. How could there be such a beautiful thing in the world? He brought it back himself, so he should enjoy it well. I'm afraid the vassal prince won't take this lying down. Just wait and see. This princess won't live for much longer. Mo Lien sneered as she stood up and walked outside. Huifeng's eyes brightened. Your Highness means that the vassal prince won't marry the princess of Northern Qi. How could he be willing to marry a woman who can't help him at all? His heart is very wild. Huifeng pursed his lips. Then should this subordinate secretly send people to protect that unlucky princess of Northern Qi? No need, Mo Lien said apathetically, the life and death of a princess of a small kingdom is unrelated to us. Chapter 1180. He was so disgusted by the vassal prince of Nan that he had secretly investigated him. He had long known that this vassal prince wanted to shove the Northern Qi princess into his hands. Could there be anything in this world that would go as he wished? Wishful thinking. He even wanted to shove a woman into his hands. If he didn't make this vassal prince of Nan a mess, his name wouldn't be Mo Lien. Mo Lien sneered, do you think we don't know about the vassal prince of Nan's little tricks these past few years? I'm afraid he won't have the life to enjoy what he wants. In the future, what would be handed over to you, was a lifetime of peace and eternal well-being. Some people had been at the top for too long and seemed to have long forgotten what their names were and what their true identities were. Then there was no harm in reminding them properly. In this world, not everyone could be provoked at will. Huifeng's eyes flickered, and he quickly followed the crown prince out. After taking 2 steps, he looked back strangely. Your Highness, could it be that the crown princess went into closed-door cultivation again? The crown prince didn't want to pay attention to him at all. This guy was just too talkative and kept stabbing him in the heart. So infuriating. My Chao section break, the next day. As expected, second young Master Do followed Situ Yi to the Eastern Palace. After seeing His Highness the Crown Prince abandoned them and led out a reluctant arbor. Hubby, cultivate. Duan Yu face-bombed. These were the words he heard the most these past 2 days. Mo Lien also coughed exasperatedly before pulling over her small hand and saying, Okay, cultivate. After I finish taking your pulse and have breakfast, I'll let you continue cultivating, okay? Arbor creased his brows and sat upright on a stool on the side, glaring at Second Do with large eyes. Quack. Hurry up. Situ Yi quickly coughed to cover his laughter and quickly stood up to say to Second Do, Please don't take offense, second young master. Our little junior sister has been cultivating excessively these past 2 days, so her mind isn't very clear. You're not thinking clearly. Arbor said. Situ Yi turned around and looked at Arbor with a smile. Junior sister, what's my name? Senior brother Situ. Arbor had an expression that said, you think I'm an idiot? Didn't her husband tell her this name 2 days ago? How could she forget it? Second Do frowned slightly and turned to look at Situ. Duan, you chortled, Second Do, let me tell you. Actually, Jojo wasn't scolding you just now. It's just that in the past 2 days, we casually told her that a group of people with the name Quack would be coming to take her pulse. So, just now, she was actually just calling your name. Second Do. What else could he say about this bunch of weirdos? Crown Princess, please give me your hand. Second Do knitted his brows as he took Arbor's pulse. His eyes occasionally glanced at the small, wooden face that was close at hand. It's very normal. Second Do looked at Mo Lien and the others in confusion. Why were these 3 people looking at him with disappointed expressions? This little crown princess's body really couldn't be any more normal, alright? Quack! Arbor jumped down from the stool and pattered towards the back room with small steps. She didn't even feel like looking at those people. What's the crown princess going to do? Second Do was puzzled. Duan Yu rolled his eyes and said, to cultivate. She's been like this these past few days, diligently cultivating every day. She doesn't care about worldly affairs and only cultivates. As they spoke, the 4 people shockingly discovered that waves of mystic energy were surging towards the back room. Chapter 1181. Clumps of fist-sized profound energy flowed into the Eastern Palace's training ground. Jojo is about to break through, right? Duan Yu exclaimed. This little fellow was truly an oddball. She was actually about to break through to level 14 cultivation at her age. The Queen Dowager, who was drinking tea in the rear garden and chatting cheerfully with the Countess of Jian'an, suddenly looked up with a frown in the direction of the Eastern Palace. This is... The Queen Dowager stood up abruptly and exclaimed in pleasant surprise, someone is breaking through in the Eastern Palace. From the looks of it, they are about to step into level 14 mystic cultivation. Could it be His Highness the Crown Prince? Fenggu also exclaimed in delight. The Queen Dowager shook her head and gazed meaningfully at Fenggu. She then asked with a faint smile, what cultivation do you think the Crown Prince has? What cultivation could His Highness the Crown Prince have? Fenggu looked at the Queen Dowager in bewilderment. Why did she feel like the Queen Dowager was implying that His Highness the Crown Prince's cultivation was higher than the Queen Dowager's? Could it be that His Highness the Crown Prince has already reached level 15, the pinnacle of mystic cultivation? You are too naive. Level 15 is only the pinnacle of the mystic realm. The Queen Dowager shook her head with a chuckle. She had long realized that she had never seen through her grandson's cultivation. Ever since he was born, the Crown Prince's cultivation had always been above the mystic realm. As for what realm it was exactly, she had never asked, and the Crown Prince naturally had never told her. Then who is breaking through in the Eastern Palace? Fenggu asked curiously. The Queen Dowager smiled with pursed lips and then sat down calmly with her teacup. I heard that the Crown Prince carried my youngest granddaughter-in-law back to the Eastern Palace these past 2 days. It seems like she has been tormenting herself in cultivation. Fenggu's mouth instantly turned round. No way, no way. The young Crown Princess is only 15 years old. She hasn't reached marriageable age yet. The Queen Dowager smiled even more heartily. The Countess of Jian'an commented with a smile, the Crown Princess is truly amazing. She truly is one of a kind in this world for her cultivation to be so high at such a young age. The Queen Dowager was grinning from ear to ear. When Ethan, who had come over with tea, saw this, her expression involuntarily stiffened before forcing a smile. Did something good happen for the Queen Dowager to be so happy? Fonggu nodded with a smile as she took the saucer from Commandery Princess Anne's hand. The Queen Dowager said that the young Crown Princess had broken through in the Eastern Palace. To be able to break through to the 14th level of cultivation before reaching marriageable age is truly commendable. When Ethan heard this, her breathing stopped slightly. Afterwards, she quickly revealed an extremely unnatural smile. Is that so? That's truly incredible. Fonggu did not notice the change in her expression. She smiled and nodded as she served the tea. Yes, it's really amazing. The Countess of Jian and glanced at Commandery Princess and indifferently before retracting her gaze without leaving a trace. After and left, the Queen Dowager gazed at her back before asking the Madam of the Count of Jian, and with a chuckle, "How was it?" "Last time, that fellow can be considered to have officially met Ethan." The Countess of Jian replied with a smile, "Many thanks for the Queen Dowager's favor. Although the Commandery Princess is good, it can't be helped that fellow Edao already has someone he likes." "Oh." The Queen Dowager was startled, not expecting the Countess of Jian to reject her first. "Emichim, it's the Li family's third Miss Xiao the Queen Dowager then smiled. Oh. But that one. The third young miss of the Assistant Minister of the Office of Imperial Banquets? Right, it's her." The Countess of Jian confirmed with a smile. Chapter 1182. We've already matched their horoscopes, and the two are very compatible. We plan to choose a suitable date for the two families to discuss and officially decide. The Queen Dowager nodded with a smile. That's pretty good. I have to congratulate the Countess. Fonggu, go to my jewelry box and choose 2 items suitable for young ladies to send to the Li family's third miss. The Countess of Jian chuckled. This subject thanks Your Majesty the Queen Dowager on behalf of her daughter-in-law. Less than an hour later, the Queen Dowager sent someone to escort the Countess of Jian out. The Queen Dowager rubbed her forehead tiredly. Fonggu's face sank, and she commented in displeasure, "This Countess of Jian really doesn't know what's good for her. Your Majesty the Queen Dowager sincerely wants to marry Commandery Princess into their Count of Jian's estate, yet she doesn't appreciate it and even set up a marriage for young Master Pei so quickly. Your Majesty the Queen Dowager, this servant has also heard of that Li family's third miss. I heard that previously, Her Majesty Consort Qing had intended to marry this third miss into the great king's son's estate as a noble concubine. But for some reason, this Miss Li actually fell ill and missed the auspicious hour, so this marriage fell through just like that. I really didn't expect that she would actually latch onto the Count of Jian's estate's young master. This Count of Jian's family isn't afraid that they will disgust Her Majesty Consort Qing." Sigh. The Queen Dowager waved her hand. The Countess is good at running a household and is smart and farsighted. No wonder the Count of Jian has valued her so much all these years. After these 2 encounters, she must have seen through something. In is arrogant and prideful, so she won't settle down even if we force her to marry into the Count of Jian's estate. It is pardonable that the Countess doesn't fancy such a daughter-in-law. Forget it, let's wait and see. It's just a pity that she, sigh. The Queen Dowager sighed and waved her hand tiredly. Help me back to my room to lie down. Has the Queen Dowager's chronic back pain flared up again? I will go inform the Royal Physician Building. All right, I already said it's an old ailment. Can those royal physicians treat me? The 2 left as they spoke. One day later, everyone in the imperial house was stunned by the commotion in the Eastern Palace. The profound energy that flew above the Eastern Palace in batches was so dense that it almost formed a nebula pattern. Who could be so awesome in breaking through that it had already been a full day and night, alright. The dense profound energy seemed to have covered the entire Eastern Palace with a layer of white mist, making it impossible for anyone to see the situation inside. The men sent by the Great King and Empress to the Eastern Palace were sent back by Prince Mo. The people who returned only told the Great King that the Crown Princess is breaking through. Don't worry, everything is normal. Was this normal? A normal person would need a day and a night to break through. She must have sucked in all the profound energy around Guanlon City. It's nothing. It's normal. The Empress Dowager felt better after a good night's sleep. She had the energy to eat sweet cakes again. Seeing this, Fenggu tried to persuade her. Empress Dowager, the imperial physician said that you can't eat too much of this. I can't eat this, I can't eat that. What else can we eat? The Empress Dowager said indignantly, don't listen to their nonsense. We only live for a short 100 years. We should eat and drink as we should. Boom. The Queen Dowager immediately jumped up from her stool. Who? What's going on? Could it be that some blind rebel army had barged into the royal palace? Chapter 1183. Soon, a reporting hidden guard floated in and coughed lightly. It's nothing, Your Majesty the Empress Dowager. His Highness the Crown Prince ordered this subordinate to inform you that the Crown Princess is currently at a critical juncture in her breakthrough, so any abnormal sounds are normal. The Empress Dowager and Fenggu looked at each other in dismay. It wasn't until noon that a blinding light shot out from the Eastern Palace's bedchamber and soared into the clouds like a pillar of light. The Empress Dowager and the Great King couldn't sit still and hastily rushed to the Eastern Palace, encountering each other at the entrance. The moment he stepped through the door, he saw a strange sight. Those layers of mystic energy were like a waterspout that poured into the Eastern Palace's bedchamber. Then, the clouds and mist dissipated, and the sky became clear and bright. A plain-colored figure abruptly jumped out of the roof. With a long whistle, the figure flew like a streak of white light to a tree several meters away with a whoosh. With a fling of her hand, several earth spirits smashed down, and a series of rumbling noises were heard. The soil under the tree rolled and tumbled, twisting into the shape of a long snake. With a smack, it slammed into a thick and solid tree, instantly snapping the tree in half and crashing to the ground with a boom. The Empress Dowager and the Great King. Ha, Jojo, you successfully broke through. Duan Yu guffawed as he looked up at the cold-faced little girl. Why are you here? The little girl looked down at him and suddenly appeared in front of him with a flash. Didn't I already arrive here yesterday? Duan Yu looked at her in bewilderment. Jojo, you didn't forget who I am again, right? Duan Yu, your core ravaging thunder is quite useful. That's right, the Jade Heavenly Thunder I gave you last time is even more. Duan Yu's eyes suddenly widened. You? What did you just say? You remember the core ravaging thunder? Then you know who I am. You are Duan Yu. Arbor looked at Duan Yu as if he was looking at a clown. He narrowed his eyes and surveyed the surroundings. Why am I here? Wasn't this the Eastern Palace? Why did she run to the Eastern Palace for no reason? Shouldn't she be inside the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm? She raised her hand and subconsciously massaged her throbbing little head. Her memory kept flipping back and suddenly stopped at the giant ape's big grinning face. She remembered. It was this giant ape that had tricked her. It had snatched the disaster-courting talisman that she had just finished drawing and stuck it on her. A certain person gloomily looked inside herself. When she saw that her realm had unknowingly soared to the entry stage of level 14 Mystic Cultivator, her small mouth instantly formed an O shape. Actually, she didn't even know how she managed to cultivate. This was because even though she was awake now, she couldn't remember anything that had happened while the disaster-courting talisman was in effect. The little fellow pursed his lips and didn't say anything for a while. He stood there in a daze for a while. Mo Lien leaped over. Jojo. Little junior sister. Situi chuckled as he ran over. Congratulations, congratulations. Little junior sister, you have already become a level 14 mystic cultivator. Senior brother Situ, you are also here. Arbor returned to her senses and nodded at him. Afterwards, she pattered to Mo Lien's side with a taut face. Mo Lien, when did I come back? You are. Mo Lien paused and looked at her in disbelief. Jojo, you remembered me. These people were so dumb. What did he mean by she remembered him? Chapter 1184. He looked at her with some surprise and some melancholy. This little fellow remembered his name. She was Mo Lien and not her husband. Ah. Little junior sister, have you recovered your memory? Situi bounced in front of him and pointed at his nose as he asked, what about me? What's my name? Situi. Arbor rolled her eyes at him with a look at an idiot expression. Situi rubbed his nose. Ah, that's right. My name is Situi. His name was finally not senior brother Situ. Little junior sister, that's great. You've finally recovered. Situi chuckled. You don't know how worried we were when you lost your memory. When did I lose my memory? Arbor glanced at them expressionlessly. I didn't lose my memory. Wasn't it just her memory being sealed by the disaster-courting talisman? She would never tell anyone about this, not even Mo Lien. She would never tell anyone that she was the one who drew the disaster-courting talisman and got herself into bloody trouble. It was too embarrassing. When she thought about how she had lost her 5 senses and memories because of the disaster-courting talisman, and how she might have wandered around the forest like a fool, she wanted to catch the giant ape and give it a good beating. Mo Lien sighed softly and went forward to hold her little hand. Jojo, look at you. You don't remember anything before yesterday again. Nothing happened before yesterday. The little fellow raised her head proudly and suddenly narrowed her eyes. Her gaze swept towards the roof and she threw Mo Lien's hand away before she flew up with a whoosh. Come out. Everyone was stunned for a moment, not understanding why she had flown up to the sky. But very quickly, they saw a big furry head peeking out from the edge of the roof. The great ape laid there and looked at her with a pair of small eyes. It grinned widely and gave her a silly smile. Great! This fellow still dared to appear in front of her. Arbor flew in front of it with a whoosh and without another word, she raised her little fist and punched it. Who told you to trick me? Who told you to force me to cultivate? Who told you to trick me? Pow, pow, pow. Arbor's small fists landed on the giant ape's head like raindrops. Along the way, the giant ape should have been secretly tailing him, but it didn't show itself. Looking at its wretched appearance, Arbor understood everything. Even after using the disaster-courting talisman on her, he was still worried and kept an eye on her to see if she was cultivating properly. Hee hee. Let's see if I can't beat this guy to death. The giant ape hurriedly used its thick and strong arms to hold its head, nimbly jumping around the eaves, climbing up the tree for a while, and sliding down while hugging the tree. That pitiful tree bent down under the weight of its huge body. Empress Xiao stared at the scene in front of her, dumbfounded. She pressed her head and moved her body. What is this? Get down here. The crown princess was climbing up and down the tree, fighting with a big monkey. That scene was beautiful no matter how one looked at it. Arbor flew down with a whoosh. Mo Lien hurriedly walked over and pulled her little hand. She naturally raised her sleeve to wipe the sweat on her head. All right. Stop fighting. Come and greet grandmother. Bang! The giant ape also landed on the ground, and it followed Chow Mu with its chubby legs. Arbor turned her head and glared at it fiercely, only to see the latter grinning cheekily and opening its big mouth. Grandmother, this is my Jojo. Chapter 1185. Mo Lien walked up to the Queen Dowager while holding the little fellow's hand and smiled at her. Mo Lien squeezed the little fellow's hand and gave her a look that said, "Call me grandmother." Arbor blinked as she looked at the benevolent-looking elderly lady and called out crisply, "Grandmother." Good. The Queen Dowager pulled Arbor over with a grin and examined her closely. Good child, let grandmother take a good look. Fonggu, look at how well born this child is. Fonggu also laughed while covering her mouth. Isn't that so? The crown princess really is like a little fairy that has descended from the heavens. If this old servant were to run into you on the streets, I might even think that I was seeing things. How could anyone be born so well in this world? Although the little fellow's face was stoic, she was still blushing from their praise. Ha ha ha. The Queen Dowager nodded with a smile. She pulled Arbor's hand and stuffed an interspatial ring into her hand. Good child, grandmother learned from the Crown Prince that you are skilled in pharmacology and can refine pills at such a young age. You are truly amazing. This is a meager meeting gift that grandmother prepared for you. Just take it. Arbor's eyes flickered when she looked down. This was a rare and precious interspatial ring in the lower star domain. She had only obtained one from teacher Long Chuyun before. When the king and queen saw this, they couldn't help but open their mouths in shock. It seemed that mother was quite satisfied with this granddaughter-in-law. Grandmother, this is too precious, I. The Queen Dowager patted Arbor's small hand and said with a chuckle, there are some spiritual flowers and herbs inside that I collected when I was young and adventurous outside. They are of no use to me, so I am giving them to you. You can use them to their fullest potential. Don't decline. This is grandmother's small token of appreciation for you. If you don't take it, grandmother will be unhappy. When Commandery Princess Ihan, who was standing behind the Queen Dowager, saw this, she clenched her handkerchief tightly and lowered her head with pursed lips. Chow, accept it. Mo Lien advised with a smile. All right then, I'll give it to grandmother after I refine a good pill. Arbor nodded and put the interspatial ring into his inner world. Ah, that's right. The old lady was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. She smiled and nodded. At this moment, the great king finally found a chance to interrupt. Ahem, Crown Princess. What exactly happened in the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm a while ago? Why were so many of you sent out in advance? Arbor faintly glanced at the great king. Suddenly, his fingers moved and he took out a defensive profound artifact that looked like a thumb ring. With a swing of his hand, he threw it towards the great king. I don't know. The secret realm suddenly collapsed. Before I left, I picked up several things, so I'll give this defensive mystic artifact to the great king, Arbor said expressionlessly. The great king was startled by her action at the beginning, but when he scooped up that defensive mystic artifact, he turned it over and over to examine it admiringly. Good stuff, this was good stuff. This defensive mystic artifact should also contain a trace of fire spiritual energy, so it should be a beginner-level spiritual artifact. This is indeed not bad. The Queen Dowager nodded in praise after taking a look. Great King, you can wear it at all times. Okay. The Great King was also amused and nodded repeatedly with a smile. Chapter 1186. When Arbor saw Empress Xiao looking in her direction, she thought for a moment before pulling out Wei Nanchu's gem-studded dagger from her waist and tossing it to Empress Xiao. For you to defend yourself. One had to know that Wei Nanchu was very resentful towards this spiritual weapon dagger because it was indeed a pretty good item. Empress Xiao held the dagger and examined it. At first, she felt that this dagger was rather beautiful, but then she realized that it was actually a spiritual weapon dagger, so she glanced at Arbor with a complicated gaze. I can also use this spiritual weapon? Empress Xiao couldn't help but ask. You can, Imperial Mother. After this kind of spiritual weapon recognizes its master, it will automatically suppress to a cultivation realm suitable for you. Mo Lian nodded and explained, although it can't display the spiritual weapon's full power after being suppressed, at least 60% of its power can be retained. But isn't that a waste? Empress Xiao softly muttered. It was quite melancholy. Her cultivation realm had always been around level 5 Mystic Cultivator for many years. It wasn't that she didn't work hard enough, but that her constitution and aptitude determined whether she could walk further on her path in the future. She was the type of person with mediocre aptitude among Mystic Cultivators. Being able to enter level 5 Mystic Cultivator realm was already considered her limit. The Empress Dowager said with a smile, "Little fellow, you gave all the good things to your royal father and mother, so what do you have left?" Arbor took out that mystic weapon bow and patted it. This is enough for me. Heh, she still had a large pile of odds and ends contributed by the giant ape. She threw them into her inner world and didn't even look at them carefully. That mystic realm was seriously too dangerous. It collapsed just like that. Fortunately, nothing happened to you. The Empress Dowager held her small hand and said, "Right, what did you do just now?" Advance to the entry level of level 14 Great Mystic Cultivator, right? Arbor nodded, and the Great King and Empress Xiao gaped at the same time, looking at Arbor as if they were looking at a little monster from outer space. Their daughter-in-law was only 15 years old, but her cultivation had already reached level 14. How could they, who had mediocre aptitude, endure this? After sending off the Empress Dowager, the Great King, the Queen, and the others, many concubines in the palace came one after another to send gifts to congratulate the Crown Princess on her advancement in cultivation. Arbor was too lazy to meet them. He only ordered people to accept the gifts and sent the people from the various palaces back. Now that the four of them had moved into the small courtyard, they finally had time to chat. Duanyu asked curiously, "Jojo, do you really not remember what happened in the Mystic Beast Forest these few days? As far as I know, you were sent out less than half a month after you entered. In other words, you've been wandering outside for more than 10 days. Could it be that you've been cultivating in the Mystic Beast Forest every day?" Our dear Duanyu really hit the nail on the head. Arbor pulled a long face and pretended to be disdainful as he said, "How is that possible? Don't talk nonsense. I was just beating up beasts in the forest and collecting crystal cores. Nothing else." Situate sneaked a glance at her and suddenly asked, "Then what about that phoenix egg you picked up? Take it out for us to see." "What phoenix egg? When did she pick up some phoenix egg?" "There." Situate pointed at Arbor and asked, "Isn't that right? Isn't that right? You were tested out in one try. You just forgot. You don't even remember something as important as you picking up a phoenix egg, little junior sister." Arbor nearly broke her facade. The corner of her mouth imperceptibly twitched, but her small face remained taut. Chapter 1187. Indeed, Arbor herself had already discovered that she had completely forgotten everything that happened in the past 15 days after the rapid cultivation talisman was stuck on her. This was probably the curse's side effect. But she just wouldn't tell them that she had forgotten. She would rather die than admit that she had wandered around the forest like an idiot for so many days and even foolishly forgot everything that happened during that period of time, that it was so humiliating. Cough. Arbor sank into her inner world to take a look. Sure enough, she strangely discovered that there really was a large resplendent golden red egg lying inside her inner world. She took out the egg and flung it in front of Situe and the others. What kind of phoenix egg is this? It's just a large-sized egg. Pfft. Situe spat out a mouthful of tea. Duanyu, who was sitting across from him, nimbly opened a folding fan in his hand, which blocked all of his tea. His handsome face instantly darkened, and he grumbled, Situe, what are you spitting for? So filthy. Miss Chiao also waved her small hand in disdain. At this time, she heard that egg indignantly yell, "You're the large-sized egg, your whole family is made of eggs." What are you saying? Arbor's small face darkened. She sat there and stared at the egg with a dignified air, casually summoning Qinghuan. Qinghuan had long been impatient to come out. The moment he came out, he looked at her in pleasant surprise and exclaimed, Master, Master, you finally woke up." Miss Chiao glared at him warningly. "I've been very clear-headed the entire time." Haha, his tsundere little master was willing to suffer because of her pride. It seemed like she didn't want to admit that she had been tricked by the rapid cultivation talisman she drew before. Qinghuan immediately understood and quickly beamed like a flower. Right, little master, you've been especially clear-headed the entire time. You've been especially diligent in cultivating during this period of time, so you just couldn't be bothered with them. That's right. Arbor nodded and coughed lightly before pointing at that egg and asking, "What's going on with this egg?" The corner of Qinghuan's mouth twitched, then she vividly described what happened that day. When she talked about how Arbor was walking in the forest and was almost hit by a phoenix egg, the three men present all looked at her with strange gazes. "This is the good fortune accumulated from 10 lifetimes, Situe muttered in a low voice. "Tell me, who would be able to walk in the forest and get smashed by a phoenix egg for no reason? Only this strange child could do that." Then Master kicked the egg away. The egg really wanted to follow Master, so it ran all the way here. Qinghuan summarized the matter simply, mainly focusing on 2 points. Firstly, the owner didn't want the egg. Secondly, Eggy had insisted on following her. The 3 men were speechless. Hee. What egg? You're an egg. Your whole family is an egg. This seat said, "This seat is the ancient Bloodfire great god. You mere mortals dare to look down on this seat like this. Wait until this seat recovers his true phoenix body, this seat will teach you a lesson." Arbor stretched out her leg to kick it, but who knew that the egg would roll especially fast and slip behind Mo Lien in a roll. It shouted angrily, "You kicked me again, you kicked me again." The egg was so heartbroken. Why did it follow such an unreliable master? "Oh, that's right, little master, Chirpy is awake," Qinghuan hurriedly said. Arbor was a little stunned and kept muttering in her heart, this disaster-courting talisman caused her to miss so many things. Chapter 1188. Even if she stubbornly refused to admit it, how could these 3 men in front of her not know that she really had forgotten what happened in the Mystic Beast Forest? But seeing that she was determined not to say anything, they could only make up their minds not to ask. Mo Lien coughed lightly, chuckled, and changed the topic. "Jojo, this is great. Little Fatty is also awake, so you can be at ease in the future." Arbor fished out the little white squirrel and rubbed its head. The little squirrel happily rubbed against her hand and turned to glare at Mo Lien. "Who's little Fatty?" "You." Mo Lien reached out and abruptly picked up its tail, turning it upside down. She looked at it with a grin and said, you seem to have the aura of a sacred beast on you, although it's so faint that it's almost undetectable. But you are a little strange. The little white squirrel hastily tucked its tail between its legs and shook its small body, kicking its limbs wildly as it wailed, "Master, master, little master. Ah! There's a big brother demon here who wants to catch me." Xiao Mu's mouth twitched as she slapped away Mo Lian's hand. She then picked up this little fat squirrel and placed it on her knees. She cast the man an irritated glance. "Don't bully it all the time." Seeing that the little fat squirrel was about to dig its little claws into the little fellow's chest, Mo Lian's cold eyes narrowed, and she directly picked it up again and flung it outside. Pu. Qingyuan covered her mouth and snickered. "Master." The little fat squirrel pitifully ran over to her with tears in its eyes. Under Mo Lian's oppressive gaze, how would he dare to randomly climb onto Master? He could only bear with that man's terrifying gaze and jump onto the little fellow's shoulder. He then obediently crouched there, petrified and motionless. Arbor propped up her chin with both hands and sighed. "Stop fooling around. I'm vexed." Mo Lian saw that she looked tired and reached out to rub her head. "Jojo, if you're tired, go back to your room and rest. Recently, you've been cultivating all day long. You haven't been able to eat or sleep well. You really need to recuperate for a while, okay?" Mo Lian said softly. Arbor nodded. She still had to make time to go home. Her parents were probably worried about her. Thump, thump, thump. The giant ape moved its thick buttocks, walked to her side, and sat down. Xiao Mu swept it a glance and didn't happily respond to it in a huff. "Jojo, where did you get this ape?" Duan Yu was dying of curiosity. Jojo refused to talk about it. She must have had a lot of things happen after she came out of the Arcana land. Darling Xiao snorted and glanced at the giant ape. "Him. I picked it up in the forest." The three of them immediately looked at her as if they were looking at a god. Could this child be any more outlandish? She randomly wandered around the forest for a few days, and not only did she pick up a phoenix egg, but she also picked up a powerful giant ape. Why didn't I pick up anything when I went to the Mystic Beast Forest for training? Situ Yi asked with a melancholy expression. Ha ha ha. Duan Yu couldn't resist guffawing. Can you compare to our Jojo? Our Xiao Xiao is a person who was born with great luck. Situ Yi rubbed his nose and nodded in agreement. That is indeed the case. Oh, right, little junior sister, do you still remember? Before Situ Yi could finish speaking, he saw Duan Yu and Mo Lian simultaneously glaring at him. Ahem. Situ Yi pretended to cough and then stopped talking. Chapter 1189. Remember what? Arbor couldn't help but look at him in confusion when he paused mid-sentence. Situ Yi sent the two of them a look before continuing, do you still remember Beijing Manor's young master Ding Yun? Arbor expressionlessly looked at her senior brother Situ and shook her head in less than 2 seconds, her aloof face devoid of any emotion. I don't know him. Duan Yu wanted to laugh, but he also felt some sympathy for that pitiful young Master Ding. Jojo had probably been transported out of the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm, so she was completely oblivious to everything that had happened during this period of time until today. Arbor furrowed her brows in contemplation. Who is it? Do I know him? Mo Lian reached out to pinch her small face. Don't think about it if you don't know him. He's merely an idle person. Situ Yi sighed softly. Little junior sister, then don't think about it. Alright, Jojo should be tired, you guys hurry up and leave. I won't be seeing you out. Mo Lian directly ordered them to leave. She stood up and pulled Xiao Qiao's small hand, dragging her towards the bedchamber. Jojo, sleep and rest well. What do you want to eat later? Mo Lien, do you smell a stench? As the little fellow walked, she carelessly tugged at his sleeve and sniffed it. Mo Lien, that he leaned close to her ear and whispered, you haven't bathed for many days. It's your body that stinks. Every time I call you to bathe together, you always tell me to cultivate. Arbor. Duan Yu propped up his chin with one hand and sighed as he watched the two leave, glued to each other like glue. They're about to get married, right? Situ Yi watched the two leave hand in hand and chuckled with his arms crossed. Looking closely, they're quite compatible, aren't they? Duan Yu merely stood there and gazed into the distance, not speaking for a long time. Situ Yi looked back and sighed before patting Duan Yu's shoulder. Let's go, brother Duan Yu. I'll treat you to a drink. Humph, why would a carefree person like me need to drown his sorrows in alcohol? Duan Yu brushed away his hand and stood up with a chuckle. However, accompanying you for a drink or two is also fine. You don't need to drown your sorrows in wine. Your sorrows are written in your eyes. Situ Yi shook his head helplessly. The word love was really a disaster for the common people. Dividing line, our dear Qiao Mu slept for a long time. She slept for a whole day and night. When she woke up, it was already noon of the next day. She was actually able to sleep for so long. It was obvious that she was really tired. After a good night's sleep, Arbor felt much better. He kicked his legs and sat up from the bed. As soon as she moved, Xiao Yao pushed the door open and entered. She looked at her with a grin and called out, Miss, you're finally awake. Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao excitedly put down the wash basin in her hands and ran to Arbor to hold her hands. Miss, you finally recognize me. Yesterday, His Highness told me that you recovered, but I didn't believe it. Xiao Yao is really too happy to see that you're perfectly fine today. What could have happened to me? Arbor stretched her small arms and legs with her hands on her hips. Accompany me home today. Xiao Yao covered her mouth and laughed. His Highness has already prepared a carriage and is waiting. Once Miss wakes up and has her meal, we can go home. Arbor sat down at the table and used her chopsticks to pick up a pastry and send it to her small mouth. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.